We'll call to order the regular meeting of the Batavia City Council from Monday, December 1st, 2014. First, I offer my apologies to the audience. We're about 5 minutes late in getting started. The City Council was in a kind of a heated discussion about some street design, and everybody had an opinion and ran a little over, so I apologize for that. Well, at this time, I ask everybody to rise briefly for a brief invocation to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight, as the City Council meets in our regular session, we're ever mindful that each of us is here to speak our hearts and our minds and our visions as to what should be in the very best interests of Batavia. We know that many times we have a tendency to argue and disagree, but at the end of the day, historically, generally from such heated arguments, the very best for the future of our town generally emerges. And so we are ever confident that that will be the case tonight. Tonight, we are, as always, we want to remember those from our community who are serving so ably on foreign soil in defense of the liberties of the United States of America. And we just ask that a special blessing be shown to them and all those from our country who are serving with them in so honorably defending our liberties and protecting our interests. Tonight, also, we want to remember those from our community who during this holiday season are sick and infirmed, and just that a special blessing be showered upon them. Tonight, as we begin to commence the holiday season, we want to express our thanks for the generosities and support and love and understanding that seems to always emerge in Batavia at this time of year as we try to take care of those who are less fortunate and try to make the holiday season one of joy and expressions of appreciation and goodness for everyone in our community. We ask for all these blessings. Amen. Alderman Cerrone, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ask the city clerk to please call the roll.
Brown?
Here.
Clark? Here. Atack? Here. Stark? Here. Chanzit?
Here.
Wolf?
Here.
Fisher?
Here.
O'Brien?
Here.
Callahan?
Here.
Homan?
Here.
Sam? Here. Facilian?
Here.
Saro?
Here.
McFadden?
Here. Let the record reflect that all 14 elected members of the City Council are present and accounted for this evening's meeting, so we have the necessary quorum to conduct business. We will move then to item number 4 on our agenda, which are items to be removed, added, or changed on the agenda. Alderman Starks.
I do have some changes, Your Honor. The first is to remove to regular agenda item C of the consent agenda, the acceptance of the COW minutes for 10/21 and 10/28, and they'll be moved to the regular agenda as item 30. I would also like to add item 7A, the Batavia Access Christmas Toy Drive Report. Also add item 8A, move item number 26, leaf and brush fee increase as item 8A. This needs to be considered before the budget is voted upon. Add item 8B, move current item number 23, 2015 budget to item 8B. This needs to be considered before any levies for 2015. And then the last, remove current item number 34, executive session, unless someone has something that they would, from council, would like to have a discussion about something. And those are the current changes. I move that we approve the agenda, sorry, I couldn't think of the word, agenda as presented.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? Should we be removing item 28, the agreement with Altamano?
Oh. Yes, we will be removing that also. We will, to add to my changes, we will also be removing item 28, Resolution 14162-R, agreement with Altamano.
So that will come off the agenda totally for tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
It will.
All right, you've all heard the presentation of the agenda as amended. Do I have a motion? You have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. A motion and second for the approval of the agenda as amended. Clerk, please call the roll.
Stark?
Aye.
Chanzit?
No.
Wolf?
No.
Fisher?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Homan?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Facilian?
Aye.
Saro?
Aye.
McFadden?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Clark? Atack?
Aye.
That is approved by a vote of 12 yes, 2 no. All right, moving then to item number 5, which is the consent agenda. Alderman Stark, would you present this, please?
I will, thank you, Your Honor. The consent agenda reads as follows, that we accept and place on file the October 2014 financials, the Plan Commission minutes for November 5th, 2014, the Police and Fire Pension 2013 Annual Municipal Compliance Report, approvals November 21st, 2014 payroll in the amount of $741,932.37, the accounts payable check register in the amount of $712,474.01, the City Council minutes for November 3rd, 2014, the approval of the Water Street Studio loan forgiveness for year 5, Resolution 1476R authorizing execution of task order number 3, professional services for development of a condition assessment report for the Batavia Government Center, Ordinance 1459 amending Title 8 of the Batavia Municipal Code for electric rates, the approval of Class D1 liquor license for Crosstown Pub and Grill, Resolution 14-131R execution of agreement with the Conservation Foundation relating to maintenance of Windmill Lakes Detention Area. I move that we approve the consent agenda as read to be placed on file.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Stark, second by Alderman McFadden for the approval of the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Brown.
Aye.
Clark. Atack.
Aye.
Stark.
Aye.
Transit.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Callahan.
Aye.
Homan.
Aye.
Sam.
Aye.
Vasilian.
Aye.
Saron.
Aye.
McFadden.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved. 14 yes, no no's, none absent. All right, as per our agenda then, we will move to item number 6, which is the published public hearing scheduled for 7:35, and I'll convene that. And I might note that I'm always told by the attorneys, as long as we don't start before 7:34 or 35, we're okay. It's if we're a few minutes late, we're okay. So we will begin this, and I'd like to begin the public hearing. This is for the levy ordinances for the special service areas for Special Service Area 4, Wild Meadow Subdivision, Unit 4, Special Service Area Number 8, Fox Trail South Subdivision, Special Service Area Number 14, Normandy Subdivision, Special Service Area 19, Prairie Trail Subdivision, and Special Service Area Number 25, Prairie Trails West Subdivision. And I'd like to begin by having Scott Buning, our Community Development Director, give us a brief presentation on the necessity and how these came to be and what's the story here. Mr. Buning.
Thank you. Essentially, the history of this was back in May of this year, we took this issue to committee. We have several different situations where subdivisions exist in the city limits, where the city owns and maintains the detention basins that are located within those subdivisions. For the most part, we have homeowners associations that actually own and maintain their detention basins, and we have what's called a backup special service area that if in the event the homeowners association fails to maintain those, we would then activate those and then pay for the maintenance of those basins in that manner. However, these subdivisions here tonight are older subdivisions that don't have homeowners associations and that do not own their detention basins. The city actually owns them and maintains them. And so when we brought this to committee, we raised this issue with the committee, and they gave us the direction to proceed with the activation of these special service areas to pay for the maintenance of these. These detention basins were developed in and are for the benefit of the subdivisions in question. So we felt that it would be appropriate to activate the levy to pay for the maintenance of these on an annual basis. The costs are in the report. They range anywhere from $900 to $3,100. And the breakdown on that was in the notices that went to the individual property owners in regards to these levies. On the low end, it would be $30 per home on an average, and on the high end, on one subdivision, it would be $77 because of the number of parcels that the city owns and is maintaining as part of that. So there are a number of subdivisions that don't have any special service areas that may need to be activated at some point in the future, or created and activated at some point in the future, but these are ones that already had special service areas in place that we felt that it would be appropriate to activate these to pay for the maintenance of those ponds.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but these special service areas are kind of historic from the perspective that these are created at the time that the subdivision was annexed and platted into the city.
That is correct,
So that
yes.
subsequently, as it was explained to me, any lots that were sold in these subdivisions, that would be a discoverable item by the attorney at time of closing, that everybody should have. We don't always, as I'm led to believe, not everybody always seems to find out about it, but that is a recorded item on the title of the property. So that is part of the public record that exists on those titles on any subdivision you're talking about.
Yes, that's correct. It would be on the title report, and then also it's on their tax bills every year, but it's just a zero levy. So it actually says special service area number, whatever the special service area is. So every year they get their tax bill, it's right there. It's just a zero levy for that.
Anybody in the council have any comments about this? Alderman Cerrone?
Yeah, I'm not going to support any of these levies. Basically because they're not fair. I'm just learning that it's public record right there, right now, but irregardless, it's more the process that they get this warning. They have the ability to come and speak, but it's almost like it's too late. That time process isn't fair. I would like to see maybe a process where they have the option or the ability to get together and maybe create their own association, given some time, or I don't know what other options there would be, but some time. It's the process that I'm concerned with. Obviously, costs are continuously rising. Right now, you said it's city-owned, so it should be in the general taxes, in my opinion, but I just wanted to say that I'm not in support for those reasons.
Alderman Clark?
These were brought up last year and were actually tabled, and I don't recall being requested to come back again, but anyway, they're here. There's money in the budget, proposed budget for the stormwater utility study. These would all, just to let the residents know, if the city does go ahead and create a stormwater utility, all these SSAs would be with a zero levy, correct?
Yeah, if we do in fact go ahead with a stormwater utility, we do have one subdivision that actually has an active levy besides these here. The intention would be is that it would then cover every property within the city limits, and then we could void out or no longer levy on any of these special service areas, because that would be taking the stormwater fee would take the place of the levy.
So I support the stormwater utility because there's several subdivisions in the city that currently we maintain their retention areas, et cetera, being covered by the general fund that will not be getting a special service area. So I don't see why I know why these are being picked on a little bit because they're already in place. But if we're going to proceed with the study for a stormwater utility, I'd like to see that in place before we start picking and choosing who's going to pay for their detention and who's not going to pay for their detention. That's just my thoughts on the subject. It's the same as it was last year, so thank you.
How many detentions is the city maintaining? And
In this area? In these
Batavia?
Areas? In the whole city?
at our expense?
There's a lot.
There's
I know
lots.
Scott provided
Yeah,
the numbers for
there's
us
dozens of them.
last year.
There's dozens of them, yeah.
There's quite a few, and quite a few that aren't. I think there's less being paid for by homeowners associations than there are by the city. I think the majority of them are paid by the city, but
And
I
the
could be wrong.
costs are more than $1,000 for many of them?
The
annual
ones
cost?
tonight, yes.
What about-
There's a few that have not had a special service area created that or would be over 1,000 as well. Yes, there's probably half a dozen, I would guess,
Half a dozen,
probably.
of which some don't have a special service area created.
Those,
So-
yes, correct, right.
Alderman Cerrone, you want to make some further comment?
Well, no, I was just going to ask then, why did these 5 get singled out as being special?
These subdivisions already had special service areas in place, so actually creating the levy is relatively simple, because, we basically pass an ordinance and move forward with it. We have to create special service areas for these other ones, and that takes a much longer process. If you remember the Tanglewood, when we did the replacement special service area for that one, the backup special service area, that took us about 6 months or so to create that special service area. So it takes time to do that.
Is there a way to put this off until those are all done, and in the meantime, we might take on stormwater utility, and this might be a moot point anyways?
We've already kicked the can down a year.
We did that last year, essentially. I mean, that's
Well, if we want to get it on the tax bill for next year, I think we have to do it now, right?
correct.
Bill, are these figures, these revenues in the proposed budget now? No? Okay, thank you.
Alderman Stark?
I think that this is a case of, if you buy your house in a subdivision that has park area and water areas, somebody has to pay for the maintenance. And I don't think it should be up to the taxpayers who live in an area that has no ponds and no green space to have their taxes go to maintain your ponds and green spaces. So it just comes down to, you don't have a homeowners association that's collecting the revenue to maintain it, so someone has to do it, and that's why those proposed levies were put in place to begin with, so that if the homeowners association ever fell apart or continued to no longer exist, that there would be money collected to be able to maintain those areas. And it's just, I think it's fair. I mean, you look at the Fourth Ward, and there's no subdivisions, no areas that have ponds to be maintained or common green spaces to be mowed. So, the Fourth Ward residents, don't have large lots, so why would they pay for having a pond or green space maintained in another part of town? So that's just my opinion of how that works.
Alderman Jansen?
My association is active. They do collect fees every month, and we do take care of our several ponds in our open space. And I think that voting no for these items sends a message to my association that we don't have to pay, and the city will come in and take care of our land for us, and that doesn't seem to be the message that we should be sending. I would love to stop writing that check every month, but that doesn't seem fair.
Alderman Clark?
Well, then we should do it across the board, because Susan is indicating that the Fourth Ward doesn't have some. I would probably beg to differ with her, but there are several subdivisions that don't have a SSA, that do have retention areas, that the city is paying for and has been paying for. So that's why I like the idea of a stormwater utility. And you talk about a socialized cost, that we had this huge discussion about the brush fee and a socialized cost. It's for the better of the whole entire city. If my neighborhood floods, it could flood into your neighborhood too. So it does benefit more than just these neighborhoods. There is a reason for them. They're engineered that way. So I would rather see it across the board. I understand why these are being singled out just because it's easy to implement them at this time. But I think Nick and I are just talking about, I don't want to say fair, because nothing in government's fair, but, it just seems to be we should look at this as the whole big picture.
Well, then, as Dan said, why should some SSAs pay, or some homeowners associations pay to maintain their areas and others not? I think it should be put in place, and if any areas are not paying, they should be activated. And
It is fair, you're right, that's not fair.
Exactly what we're doing.
yeah, and that's what
That's
we're
not fair,
doing
but-
in stages.
But the homeowners, when you purchase a house, you're aware of those association fees. This, you're not aware, so that's not fair. It's not fair in either case. You can argue both sides.
You had a bad real estate attorney if you didn't know you had an SSA
Yeah.
on your property.
Alderman Callahan?
Well, I agree with what Nick and Lisa are saying, and kind of couldn't we split the hair and give them the opportunity like you have with the homeowners association, let the areas be able to create it for themselves, probably at a cheaper cost, before government steps in and wants to do it for them at an increased cost. Give them the opportunity to save money on something that they're going to have to pay for.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be cheaper.
Yeah, I think it would be hard to be cheaper.
I would at least let them have the
I wouldn't know
opportunity to make that
but
decision.
We get a large, we get a bigger contract, so the prices might go down.
I mean, outside of the levy going on this year, is there anything to stop an association from forming and saying, we want to take this on and
They have-
working with the city and
No,
have?
they could. It's challenging, though, because you'd have to try and get every single property owner. You're going to probably have some holdouts. They're going to say, hey, I don't want to pay that fee, so therefore I'm not going to be joining your association, and then everybody else is paying proportionately more. So, I mean, it's possible, but it can be difficult.
I was going to say, could the neighborhood association come back and say, okay, we put together ours, we want to drop, Wild Meadow subdivision 4, can we do that? They'd have to have everybody involved, or they'd have to have enough to be able to prove that they could fund it.
I mean, if let's say, there's 30 homes in a subdivision and 10 of them say, you know what, we're willing to take this on, even though 20 people don't want to do it, and they want to create their own association, and they want us to deed the pond over to them, sure, we could do that. But, are the other 20 people that aren't going to be part of that think that that's fair? But they could do it.
So if this is affirmative and these are passed, these levies are passed, and we do initiate a stormwater utility, then we can stop levying that also, right? And that,
Correct.
as I say, would somewhat go away.
Yeah, you could. The special service area would still be there, but we
Still
would
be
then
there, but
put
we
it back to a
just
zero levy again.
levy.
Right.
I mean, this is a good reason why I would advocate for a stormwater utility, another good reason.
Well, it's just a change in the line item, though. I mean, I don't know what the
Moves
cost
from one place
difference
to
would be.
another.
But, right, it's, Your Honor, should we allow?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, but I wanted to let the city council have their discussion first so that there'd be some further education for the folks in the audience that wanted to speak to it, so everybody would have an understanding.
And I just had one final question. If I read this correctly, the average cost per homeowner is between $30 and $77 per year?
That's estimated, yes.
Estimated, okay. So it's not like $30 per $77 a
Per month.
month?
No, it's an annual
Per
cost.
year, an annual cost to have their common areas maintained?
Right, correct.
Which is a steal.
Okay, this is a public hearing. If anybody in the public would like to speak, I assume some folks do, would you come forward and use the mic, please, and give us your name, so for the record, so we have it on the...
Good evening. My name is Louis Sita. I live at 1019 Scheidler in the Normandy Estates subdivision. I'd like to address specifically a comment, I believe it's Susan, you had made. This has to do with the inequality of presenting this cost as a burden to the entire city. You said we get the advantage of having a park or a green space or a water feature. We're in Normandy Estates. That's not a green space. It's not a water feature. It's not a park. The maintenance on that facility is abysmal. Everybody in charge of maintaining that property should be embarrassed. We've paid to have that done, as have everybody else within the city, but by no means has that little plot been maintained. Where we get a little bit confused, we see the burden of the maintenance to be clearly on the city. As we understand it, when we purchased, I'm an original homeowner to the subdivision. I understand the SSA has been there since day one. But when we talked to the developer for Normandy Estates, and this is specific to Normandy Estates, he's the one who paid to have that little detention area installed. By law, he did what he was supposed to do. He had it installed. He deeded it to the city. We paid when we purchased the property over there for the work he did to better that property and deed it to the city. When we purchased our homes, we were hit with an economic impact fee. That's something we paid the builder to provide some subsidy to the city as we entered into our residency here in the city of Batavia. So we see we've kind of paid for that twice already. We've also paid for the maintenance all these years, and frankly, the maintenance really hasn't been done well, to put it mildly. We as homeowners over there, I don't know if you guys on the board are aware of this, we paid to have 8 trees planted. We planted ash trees and oak trees over there at our expense to beautify it. Is everybody up here aware of that? Is that unique to a subdivision within Batavia? We think we've gone above board to try and maintain that area to the best of our ability. The biggest concern we've got, I'm speaking for our subdivision, but I suspect the concern is going to be by everybody over here. As I understand this here, is legal counsel here? Correct me if I'm wrong. As I understand it, The fund is the ordinary and extraordinary maintenance and repair. As I read extraordinary, there's no cap to that extraordinary. Is that accurate?
Well, the cap would be what was in the original SSA of the 0.1% of assessed value would be the maximum under the SSA that was formed originally.
Is there a way to increase that?
You would have to increase it beyond what was originally improved, which is not what's being proposed, but to increase it beyond what was originally approved, it would be to basically redo the whole SSA process that was originally done, which is a more involved public notice and hearing than what's done to increase it over the prior year.
So in theory, there is a cap at the moment, but it's a temporary cap because it's not extraordinarily difficult to overcome.
Well, it's pretty difficult to do the original SSA process, which is what would have to be redone to increase it above the 0.1%. I believe it's 0.1%, isn't it, Scott?
They vary on the subdivisions. I think that one is 0.1.
Obviously, the concern is, based on history, very few of us, I believe in the audience, would feel out of line if we said, generally speaking, government agencies are the most fiduciary responsible when it comes to our tax dollars. So we look at this and say, hey, if it's $30 now, 5 years from now, is it still going to be $30? Is it going to be $100 and $200? We don't know. And we understand you guys hold the legal responsibility to be able to adjust what you need to adjust to make sure that the city is moving forward. I don't think this is the right way for the city to be moving forward. To be completely candid with you, to find out about this at this point when you're ready to vote, I find unconscionable. This is a big deal to us. It's another situation where the city is saying, hey, here's another way for us to create money to take care of expenses we have to create. We understand you need money. That's why we pay property taxes. If you need to raise the property taxes, make it fair and equitable for everybody to do whatever you need to do. That's something that I feel very strongly needs to be done. Where I get a little bit concerned, specific again to Normandy Estates, I doubt this applies to everybody else. Scott, I believe you said that in May of 2014 this process started. In May of 2014, we were told to come here or invited to come here to review a possibility of turning that little area into a wetlands because it was so difficult to mow. So we believe that this discussion had something entirely different in mind for Normandy Estates. We were told that they went out for bid, the bids came back extraordinarily high, and that they weren't going to move forward with what they were going to do as far as turning it back into a wetlands area. And then to find out 10 days ago that, yeah, that's what we talked about, we don't have the money to do it, and now we're going to activate the SSA to take money from the homeowners direct, that's a concern to me. That's not the type of dialogue that I'd like to have with our representatives here in the city. I don't feel that's fair. Can I answer any questions?
You're here to make your statements, and we entertain anybody else in the audience that wants to speak. That's generally the policy. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you give us your name, please, for the clerk.
Yes, hi, good evening. My name is Steve Rakers. I reside at 472 Ridgelawn Trail. I have several points I'd like to make, but I'd first like to maybe just start with a couple of comments of that I think Susan said you don't have any common areas or wetlands.
I thought about where they are over on Maves.
Okay, but regardless, I don't have any kids in the school district anymore, and I'm perfectly happy to pay my school taxes. So, what I hate to see happen from this is we become a community of separate wards. We're a town, we're Batavia, and if there's things that have to happen to keep our town beautiful, of keeping the areas mowed, that should be reflected in the property taxes and cared for as a community, not as 9 wards or whatever we have. So I'm here representing the homeowners of Fox Trail tonight. We're very concerned over this process of this special tax being levied on us. To us it's nonsense because many of us have lived there in that community now for 18 and 20 years. Everything's been fine. We've not had to pay for any extra services. Many of our neighbors take care of much of that property on their own there with no assistance from the town. We built our house there 18 years ago, and our developer turned that property over to the city. The city accepted it and accepted responsibility for it. We expect now that the city will continue to take responsibility for the property that they own there. I would say as homeowners, we have to manage our finances of what we have. And I know you have a tough job here in the city to manage the finances and the budgets. We applaud you for doing a good job at that. But any extra monies you take out of the homeowners, right, comes out of other funds that we have to manage. And whether that's not patronizing local restaurants, if it's not contributing to a fireworks fund, if it's not buying locally and keep money and buy your gas in Batavia, you start looking for other ways to save money. So ultimately, this hurts not only the homeowners, but this is an impact on local businesses here as well. So we often have, in my business that we run, saying of, when we look at making a change to our customers, are we just believing, our own cow manure, or are we truly doing what's best for the customer? And in this case, I guess is to ask the city council here and Mayor Schelke, are you really truly looking out what's best for the city of Batavia, for your homeowners, for the voters here, or are you just believing what's believed behind closed doors, that we need to raise more money? I realize a town never raises revenue. You don't provide any goods or anything that we buy. The only way you have to do that is to raise taxes. And that burden falls back on us to remanage our finances in our homes, and something ultimately has to give. So as working adults, we know how to manage our finances. We're going to ask the city here to do the same. You get money on the general property tax from us to maintain properties, and please continue doing so. Increasing these levies here are not going to help our home values. If anything, it's going to make Batavia a little bit less attractive in the surrounding areas of places to buy and live. I would strongly suggest that reconsidering here of raising these taxes and putting these special levies on is not going to help us as a town. And then the last point I want to make is that storm area we have is not used exclusively for Fox Trail South. Water comes down from many different areas, and I'm sure if the city engineer looked at the floodplains, you'd see that's not just water that falls in Fox Trail South that's coming into that area. It's coming from across Hart Road. It's coming from North Aurora. So water comes from a lot of different areas. We happen to be at the low point in that ward. And so ultimately, all the water from that floodplain is going to end up in our subdivision. We're happy to receive it. What we're asking, though, is that we shouldn't be the ones that have to bear the sole responsibility of the water coming from other areas, that we have to pick up the cost of maintaining that area. So with that, I'd ask you to please consider carefully and wholeheartedly of doing the right thing here, of not instituting a special tax levy on us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor? Anybody else in the audience wish to address the council? Could you give us your name, please, for the clerk?
Yeah, my name's Bill Fox. I live at 1103 Scheidler in the Normandy Estates subdivision. I just want to echo some of the sentiments that have been said here. When I received that letter a couple of weeks ago, I thought this is either the height of arrogance or the height of tone deafness from our elected officials. It's got to be one or the other. Unbelievable to me. As Lou said, we were brought here some time ago and told that for $9,000 they were going to make dramatic improvements to that space and create a wild area that needed no maintenance. A few months later, we're told we're going to pay more money so they can mow the lawn. Absolutely ridiculous. Kane County ranks number 32 in the nation in property tax. Number 32 in the nation. In Illinois, we rank number 1 in the number of taxing entities, and it's twice the U.S. average. People are leaving this state in droves, and part of the reason for that is exactly what we're considering tonight. When my car breaks down, I can't go to Lou's house and say, give me $100. My car broke down. I got to balance my budget. I will earn again this year less than I have in the previous year. This marks about the 4th consecutive year that I've earned less than the year before. You know what? I'm debt-free. How do I do it? I balance my budget. I cut my expenses. I put my money where it needs to go, whether it's my children's education, food in the pantry, whatever it might be. I ask you folks to do the same thing for a change and pay attention to the residents. Give us a break here. Thank you.
Anybody else want to address us? Your name,
Tom
please?
Stanfa, 1639 Derby Drive, Fox Trail South. I've been listening to you folks talk. Gentleman over here says something about a steal regarding $30 to $70 a year. Let's see, why don't we put that on top of all the other taxes we get? Kane County, the school board. Where's all that money coming from? All these people right here. How far can they go on that kind of drought? How often do we got to go to the well before it runs dry? That gentleman said it perfectly. Let's have a good budget, you know? Let's work that way. And you know, there was another thing. We're talking about having people generally take care of one small group. Well, how about on River Street here, where the arch was, what was it, $100,000? 6 businesses got the advantage of that? Who paid for that? All the businesses, or just those 6 businesses? I don't think so. Thank you.
I'm Frank Beltrano, 1500 Flag Day Drive in Normandy Estates. I've been here for 20 years, sent my kids to the public education, to the high school, and when I came here, taxes were affordable. I am taxed to death. You know, now you come to me for 30 bucks. I mean, where's the disgrace here? I mean, the recent referendum that got hammered down was basically a mistrust of government. People are tired. You got to get the message. Thank you.
Tom Katura, 432 Ridgelawn Trail. I'm in Fox Trails. So my concern about this, I'm a finance guy, so I can appreciate you trying to find money and find ways to pass it on. But the concern I have is this could lead to more things, right? So you just talked about our share of it. So let's talk about the brush. I don't have any brush. I pay for brush. I'm not complaining about it. We get to the sewers. Our subdivision's a lot newer compared to downtown here. I'm probably not going to have as much expense for the sewers, but we're going to pay for it for the good of the city. So what other user fees are you thinking of tapping on going forward as you're starting at this one? I mean, this is $30 to $77, doesn't seem like a lot, but next month it's another $100 for something else. So, you know, you need to be careful that they keep additive. All these things they're talking about, everything keeps adding on and adding on. And yeah, people are sick of it. You did see that school board vote, so that's it.
Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Jeff Johns, and I live at 121 Pitts Lane. And I appreciate the opportunity to step up here and attend the meeting, but something came out from one of my fellow citizens that talked about fiduciary responsibility. And I think you're all pretty remiss if you don't keep that in mind at heart. And some of you do pay attention to that, but many times it's just what's the simplest way for the city. You know, you talk about 30 bucks to a resident for this last issue. That's actually a lot of money. And when you are going to present that to the residents numerous times, it adds up. You hear of neighboring communities and cities that are talking about how they can control the residents' taxes. And is it really unrealistic to try to reduce a tax? I mean, I'm a simple guy, but there's got to be a better way to look out for the residents. Thank you.
Anybody else? Carl?
I think this is on point. For everyone who spoke here tonight, I would like you to come to Batavia School Board and give them the same message. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. McGrath?
Yeah, I just want to give maybe a little more history to how this happened. It happened before I came here, but my understanding is that when the growth period started, the city had to make a deliberate decision as to whether it was going to expand or not. And allowing some of the new subdivisions to come into town would have required much of the stormwater system in the entire town to be redone, resized. The decision was made by the then city council that wasn't reasonable, it wasn't feasible. So I think, as always in these decisions, a balance was made, and that was, and as I think everybody knows, you don't see any detention ponds anywhere until about the 70s. And it was at that point when cities started reaching and developing around at the furthermost point of the ability of their storm systems to function, that the concept of detention ponds came into place, where the water could sit for 24 hours before it was put into the system. Now, those subdivisions all had to have the rest of the stormwater system built anyway, but my understanding is the philosophy was that there would be a quote-unquote a price to pay, and the price was that if those were going to be added to the city, that there could be an extra cost to take care of that extraordinary facility, especially in extraordinary circumstances, say if it silted in or the inlet or the outlet cracked or something like that, which was not seen to be something that would happen very often. But in the meantime, setting up a backup SSA seemed to be a reasonable and a fair thing. It was really clear that the larger subdivisions, it was worth it to a builder who would usually put amenities into the project, that he would set up a homeowners association, because there was significant things they would build into the subdivision to entice people to live in the subdivision, and these were things that certainly didn't have anything to do with running a city, whether it be pool, club, or extraordinary entry features, etc. So for the larger subdivisions, it was very much easier to set up a homeowners association. When you got to the smaller ones, it was very difficult. I think a lot of developers didn't want to spend the fees, although there were often times that they represented the city that they would be setting up homeowners associations. But when time comes and a developer is nearing the end of selling out, stories change. You have a subdivision of 30 people or 40 people or 75 people, and the notion of setting up a not-for-profit corporation, finding people who want to do budgeting and spend their time that way, which can also be, frankly, the tyranny of the association. Though a lot of those weren't set up, and the neighborhoods didn't want to do that. So, especially if it took 3 or 4 years for a developer to build out a subdivision, it would be his responsibility to take care of that detention pond until it was totally sold out. So there was no maintenance to worry about. They wanted to take care of it because they wanted to keep on selling lots. And I think really over time it just became a matter of how large some of those detention areas were. But the detention areas are, they're not aesthetic pieces. They're part of the stormwater system. And I'm just saying that was the reasoning why they were put into place, why they were put into place in every annexation agreement and were recorded on people's titles. But that's the big picture of how retention areas, or detention areas, fit into our infrastructure, where there was a sense at the time that actually there was an expense being put on that was larger than maybe perhaps a benefit more to that area than benefited the entire city, but that's it. So that's the kind of a balancing thing, is my understanding.
Any other comments from the city council?
Question.
Alderman Vasilian?
The one citizen got up, spoke, and said that his detention area actually handles water that flows from other parts of the city. Is that true?
Every detention area is, tell yourself, if we didn't have stormwater system, we would have creeks. So tell yourself that instead of creeks, where people's rain leaves their yard and goes into a creek and runs down to the river. Now it either goes into the drain in front of their house, then it goes into their pond where it has to hold the water for 24 hours and let it go at a certain rate into the next pipe down. Then it may go into another detention pond, stay there for 24 hours, then go into another one. Every time somebody builds a subdivision in the line of whatever way the water runs down to the river, because that's what this is all about, it's just another section of that system. But since you can't build pipes large enough or change the size of the pipes downstream, you have to have some kind of mechanism to hold that water, let the water downstream get into the river and out of the pipes before you let it go.
I understand that concept of the 24-hour holding period and things like that. What I wasn't clear on was the interconnection of these various systems. So
Everyone, virtually everyone has to be included in, I don't know how many stormwater mains there truly are, but ultimately there's, I wouldn't even hazard to guess how many mains there are that really go into the river, but it's not all that many.
Okay. Yeah, because then that kind of sways my thinking a little bit on this, is if it's all part of an interconnected system, it does seem a little odd to me to be taxing one portion or one hub of a larger network that, rather than distributing it amongst everybody, because everybody then in some way and fashion is contributing to that storm collection. So that's my thought.
Okay, Alderman Stroll. One last, a couple points came up. Scott brought up the fact that there are many of these subdivisions. These 5 just happen to be the first ones that we're going to levy, which doesn't seem fair. I would, another thing is that the potential of the stormwater utility might waive this anyways. So with those two things, still kind of out there, I would make a motion that we table this for 6 more months and see what we can do, either push the stormwater through or move other levies forward and do them all as a city at one time. That's a motion out there, by the way.
Just so you know, Nick, I think we're already in the middle of trying to get into the stormwater utility.
I understand.
And
That's
it's part of the
why do
2015
this.
budget. To set that up, that's not a simple process. That may be years away from that being a utility.
And in that case, I would table this for 3 years, but I know I'm not going to get any support on that, so.
We almost didn't approve the feasibility study. We were this close to talking about tabling that. That terrifies me, too. It feels like we keep kicking cans down the road and we're not going to deal with the real issues.
There's no doubt, but there's no reason these 5 should be the first cans to be kicked.
Well, there is already an SSA that's out there that is being levied for this exact cause, for this exact reason. And when they're there, I think they should be used to pay for what they're for.
Alderman Callahan?
Well, I'm just wondering, as all the points were brought up tonight, the part that terrifies me is the amount of people that are leaving the state due to the taxes. That's inescapable. And I just bought my 30-year house, and I don't want to be the last person here paying taxes. So what I'm thinking is we need to start thinking creatively. It is easy to go and say, let that area pay for what they owe. People in this town pay more than their fair share of what they owe. There has never been a problem with that. But are we doing what we can first and foremost with spending? In the budget tonight is a line item for $22,000 for carpeting in this room. It's fine. Let's take care of that, because these 5 would be $9,000. So take off the $22,000, we probably could fund all the other ones for the next year.
Mr. Mayor, should we close the public hearing and then continue with our discussion, or do you want to keep it open?
I was going to ask I wanted to make a comment before we close the public hearing, but Alderman Stark?
A couple things. I think when we talk about Well, two things, honestly. Alderman McFadden lives in a subdivision where he pays a homeowners association, and a large homeowners association, which is much bigger than $30 a year. Because he chose to live somewhere that has larger lots and larger places and more water runoff. So that's where I have a hard time with, everyone paying for, you choose to live in an area. So those are associated costs. Part two of what an observation I have to make aloud, because I've been thinking it the whole time, is when you look at your tax bill, the City of Batavia's part is one of the very smallest parts on your tax bill. And we just went through the budget process, and no one came. There were a few people, Yvonne and Carl were here. We passed a very, very large, very lean budget, which does not increase any of our residents' levies. We can't say that about the school board, but we can say that about the city. We are very fiscally responsible and very conscious about every dollar we spend. And so when we look at it as a whole, I'm almost offended that people think that we're not looking out for their bottom line. So that was my last comment.
But I absolutely agree with that. I'm just saying we can do better. That's it. Just we can do better. If we're saying, I want more money, they better know that we turned over every stone before that to say, we paid more money, and they're, okay, I appreciate it. Because the people do know that we don't have our levy this year. It's not going up, it's going down. That we are holding the line on fees, and that we are doing all of those things. And those things, we are all very proud of that. But there is room to do better if we need to. And as you said about Alderman McFadden having the homeowners and Alderman Chanzit, the homeowners association, they are making that to their homeowners association. So if this needs to be done, let them have the opportunity to make decisions on their own first to create one. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, we do have a motion and second on the floor to table this for 6 months. Before we do this, I just want to elaborate a little bit on some of the things that the council just said here, and specifically what I want to comment on is the city's property tax rate. Later tonight, we're going to act on item number 23, which is the 2015 budget. And I think the members of the city council sit here with me, and we're all knowledgeable of the fact that the property taxes in Batavia are very high. I'd be the first to admit it. I live in Wild Meadow subdivision out there. Amongst some of my neighbors are sitting in the audience. I recognize you, and I'm subject to this too. What I want to share with you is the fact that if you look at the city of Batavia's share of your property tax bill, the part of it that's paid by the city, that the city gets out of your property tax bill, you have, for all intent and purposes, one of the lowest ones in the entire Chicagoland region. From the city's perspective, that's only the city's share of your bill. The city could be giving you a much, much higher bill than what we are giving you. Right now, a taxpayer in Batavia, under the proposal we have here tonight, is going to keep your tax bill from the city at about 73 cents. By comparison, if some of us go down the street on Hart Road or Redant Road to the city of Aurora, and you cross the line down there and go into the city of Aurora, that same municipal property tax bill goes to $2.16 per $100 of assessed valuation. So the city of Batavia's property tax bill, in comparison to the next door neighboring community, is, I will tell you, we are in the top 5% of the lowest property tax bills for municipalities in the entire Chicagoland region. If you compare us with all the cities that are surrounding us here in the immediate area, the only one that's with us is the city of Geneva, and Batavia and Geneva keep, every time they pass their budget in May, we pass ours in December, and the levy keeps going. Right now, I think Geneva is about a half a cent lower than we are in the overall levy of municipal property tax, but after their next levy, they'll probably be a half a cent or more higher than we are. So, but if you compare Batavia and Geneva versus all the other cities around, anybody up and down the river, Elgin, South Elgin, St. Charles, Aurora, North Aurora, Montgomery, we're at the very bottom end of the pack. So I just want to say on behalf of the city council, these men and women here work very, very hard to represent you in trying to give you the very best property tax bill they can give you for the services you are receiving. You can't, you're going to, if you want to get into it and look for yourself, you will see that the city's share of your property tax bill as a city's portion is at the rock bottom low of the region. And so we're very proud of that fact, and I just want to share that with you. Okay, we do have a motion and second on the floor to table this for a 6-month period.
And I have a question about that motion. I'll ask the city attorney. When it says motion to table for 6 months, does that require it to be brought back up in 6 months?
I don't know. I would have to look at that. Give you
Okay.
a definite answer.
Because that means that it would be brought back up at the first meeting in May, which would be when the new council takes its seats, just as a thought.
Would also require another public notice, wouldn't it? If we were to vote on it again in 6 months? We have to go through all that expense of the public notice again.
Your Honor, I think for clarity also, I think we need to get out of the public hearing before we have a vote.
I thought we should vote on it before we adjourn the public hearing. What's your opinion?
Well, I think we're going to have to, are we going to vote on each one?
Right. So, but that's outside the public hearing. This is just together.
I just think it would be better to vote on it while we're still in the public hearing part of it, since we do have the motion specific to that, deferral of a 6-month period. Any other discussion? Mr. McGrath, you want to make a comment?
You need, pardon me, you either need to table it, and then at any time that a council person wants to make a motion to take something off the table, that's how it works, or you can table it to a specific date.
Well, his motion was for 6 months.
I think if I think that's all well and good. I think it would be better to, like, say what date that is, like May 2nd, or so it appears on an agenda, because we have to know when to put it on an agenda, and that doesn't mean that you need to vote on it. As far as I'm concerned, if it ended up on an agenda, we would come back and then ask you, how do you folks want to deal with this, given 6 months passage of time, and that would probably lead to more notices if you were even going to have a conversation.
Right, my purpose was that if we're moving ahead with the stormwater utility, this is moot anyways, and we'll have a good idea within 6 months anyway, so.
We won't have an answer by
You're not
May.
going to have an answer for a year or two on a stormwater utility, Nick. I guarantee you that.
Well, then that's what we'll talk about in 6 months.
And I think 6 months puts it in a kind of a status review, so that's fine. Okay, we do have a motion and second on the floor for a 6-month postponement of this. Clerk, call the roll.
Saron?
Aye.
McFadden?
No.
Brown?
No.
Clark? Aye. Atack? Aye. Stark?
No.
Chanzit?
No.
Wolf?
No.
Fisher?
No.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Homan?
No.
Sam? Aye. Vasilian?
Aye.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mr. Mayor?
Awesome.
We have a tie vote.
I'll vote, I'll vote aye. So we'll postpone it. Okay, by that action, then, we will probably then be negating on our agenda items 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. I would suggest to those of you in the audience that there's probably going to, this is not over. We're probably going to have to continue to look at how we put all this together and maintain it. I think all of us want to live in nice subdivisions and have good retention ponds, and I don't need to see us get into a big wrangle down here about maintenance of these things and how we're going to pay it. I think we do have some time that we can kind of look at this and have an understanding as to where we're going to go with this whole thing. And we will go from there. So thank you all for coming down this evening. Okay, we're going to move then to item number 7, which is an item called Matters from the Public. And Mr. Bailey, I know you're here and wanted to speak. Would you come up?
Stick around when we spend $102 million.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for letting me have a few minutes here tonight to bring you up to date on the toy drive. Where are they going? I need not your vote. I'll get to them later.
to the council, and thanks to the mayor for the toys that we received a couple of weeks ago back here. It was a great help to us to get the toy drive started. This year, we're in trouble. We're in deep trouble. What had happened earlier this year, as you know, we store all the toys at the Baptist Church. It's free to us. It's free to the community. We buy toys all year, and people donate toys to us. We had a flood in the church. We lost about 25 to 30% of the toys, the new toys. They can't be washed. They can't be saved because mold had grown on these toys. I can't give them to anybody in Batavia. I can't give them to my own family. I can't give them to your family. We had to destroy all of those toys. As a result of that, we have been canvassing the area to see how we can replace those toys that were lost. I can tell you since the last 2 weeks when you had the meeting, Rudy and I have been over to the fire department to pick up toys for Batavia children. I've been there once on the east side, once on the west side. So you can tell you how many toys that I've had. Checks and gift cards I've only received from the council here and not a lot from the city. Come on, Batavia. Let's get on board here and let's help these families out. Tonight when I stopped off here, I mailed the letters to the families that have applied for the toys. 236 families in Batavia need your support. Yeah, we talked about a $30 raise on this and a $30 raise or a $50 raise. I'm talking about children here in Batavia that you and I have to look at that's not going to have a Christmas. Is it $30? Is it $20? Is it $10? Come on, Batavia. I need your help. I've stood here the last couple years since my mother's passed, and I said, I don't know if I'm going to make it, but every year we make it. Somehow we make it. The letters have been sent out this week to those families to tell them to come to the church on December 14th at 2 o'clock to get toys for their children. I'm not going to turn any of those people away. Batavia is not going to turn any of those people away. I know the Batavia folks are going to step up and make this happen tonight. I know that they're going to it's going to make it happen before December 14th. The letters went out that they have to come in, one adult that will come in and pick up toys for their children. It's going to start at 2 o'clock on December 14th. I invite anybody here that wants to come and see how proud you will be at what the city of Batavia is going to make for these 230-something families. The drop-off for toys, again, the chief has got both fire stations here in town that we can drop off toys. You can drop it off at the library. You can drop off at Funway. Any checks or gift cards can be dropped off here at the police department. Checks to be made out to Batavia Access Toys, not Mildred Bailey's son. Batavia Access Toys. I need your help, Batavia. We got 200 and something families out there. I can tell you that the numbers are huge this year. The huge number this year, as I may talked about it, and over the past few years, the teens this year is 123 teens. I know this gentleman here has talked about giving a Barbie doll to a 15-year-old son or a 15-year-old gentleman. Can't do that this year. You can't give a Barbie doll to a 15-year-old football player. Rudy, let's let the dogs out. Bulldog people, I need your help. Batavia, I need your help. December 14th will be another record year here in Batavia. We're going to take care of the people here in Batavia. Everybody that can hear my voice tonight, whether on TV or back here or whatever, Batavia, I know you'll make it happen. Are there any questions?
I think the city council certainly joins with me in saluting you and all those, you and Rudy and everybody else that's involved in the Access Toy Program. We thank you for what you're doing. It's a remarkable feat to see it unfold every year, and December 14th will be another magic day. I'm confident that Batavia will rise to the occasion. Thanks for coming down and helping spread the word.
I'll be back to let you know how we did. I'll see you out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hey, Yvonne Dinwiddie, you had asked to speak.
Keep you here all night. Only spending $102 million.
It has to do with a lot of what's going on.
They don't care, Don. As long as it doesn't affect them, they don't care.
Pardon?
As long as it doesn't affect them directly,
Multi-million-dollar budget. It does, though. You know,
they don't get it.
if it hadn't been for my reclamation project, 6 houses in my side yard would still be flooding. Plus, the city's light pole would be down. And I did it. I didn't ask the city to do it. But then when they told me I couldn't put a sign on my parkway, I sent you a bill.
You're on,
because
Yvonne.
I maintain it. Okay, they're all gone. Okay. First of all, I do want you to understand that I appreciate everything you do. So even though I'm critical for the reasons that I think we can improve in Batavia. I realize we have the lowest, well, one of the lowest tax rates, but there's always room for improvement. So I hope you will take this in the spirit that it's given. I attended the COW meeting on 11/25 and was disturbed by the apparent lack of understanding and the apparent lack of knowledge of some of the council members and especially some of our city staff members. I spent time reading the bids and the bid requirements and the resolution for the stormwater utility, and I called some staff members as well as talked to the mayor and a council member or two. Plus, I have a 28-year residential history in Batavia, and I've attended many council, school board, and park district meetings, and I've been a community activist. I listen to what people have to say, and I'm always particularly interested in the opinions and observations of people who disagree with me. I figure if they're willing to talk and even argue about a subject, we will both learn from it. After the COW meeting, I was handed a list of questions by an audience member, some of them obvious questions and observations that should have been asked by council members even before the COW meeting, so I will incorporate those questions in this presentation along with my request that any decision on any study approval be tabled until all the questions are answered, and if staff can't answer the questions, then it might be time to review staff qualifications. As regards the study for brush pickup, why do we need a study? The city did the brush and leaf pickup before we had home rule, and there should be historical cost data from that period to compare to bids and current cost data for contracted out pickups. Has staff not heard of economies of scale? Mr. Holm told the COW that there wouldn't be any savings if there were fewer brush and leaf pickups because there would just be more to pick up. So who negotiates these contracts, and don't they know how to challenge costs? Where is it written? Where is the written cost comparison showing what it costs the city to pick up the brush and leaves? How many times during the month did the city pick up leaves and brush, and what was the employee cost breakdown and the truck cost, the machine cost, and the fuel cost? Was the cost for fuel higher or lower when the city was doing the pickup? I believe you'll find it was higher. What were the insurance and utility costs? When the contractor bid the job, were these costs broken down in the bid and compared to the city's former costs? What doesn't make sense is for a contractor to say that there would not be a cost reduction for fewer pickups, and here's why. People don't put their brush and leaves out for every pickup. So if only half of the people put their brush or leaves out, the company is running trucks less than capacity. To give you a mental picture of what I'm talking about, during the last 2 months scheduled for brush pick, driving up and down the streets, maybe 1 in 10 houses had any brush at the curb for the trucks, but the trucks still drove up and down the streets for minimal pickup, thus using fuel and equipment that could have been avoided if brush pickup was scheduled more efficiently. Furthermore, since many of Batavia's trees succumb to emerald ash borer and other diseases, there are a lot less trees requiring pruning. If there are fewer pickups and if people were reminded the dates of those pickups, perhaps with signs similar to those placed on major streets for hydrant flushing, a greater number of people might put their brush out, allowing for less fuel expended, less truck trips, less noise, and more efficiency. Also, 100% of the people pay for brush and leaf pickup, but not all use it or might use it only once or twice. Additionally, before home rule, brush and leaf pickup was a city service without further charge. After the city became home rule, residents endure a $3 a month charge during the summer months with no charges for winter. Then the charge was increased to 12 months while pickups remained the same or fewer. It seems the reasoning wasn't questioned. We don't need to pay outside contractors for a study when we have or should have enough historical data from prior periods to refine bid requirements and to make knowledgeable cost comparisons and challenge bids. I haven't had time to check the start date that Batavia residents were being charged for sewer as well as water. I do remember that we were charged water meter rates for sewer all year until it was challenged that people water their lawns in summer and use water outside so that it doesn't go into the sewer. This resulted in a change in the sewer rates for average winter usage. But there was an added service charge in addition to the water service charge that is now $7.21 for water and $9.94 for sewer. There is a municipal tax on water usage. Already, our sanitary bills, sewer bills are higher than our water bills, and our service fee is also higher. I don't understand the justification for these charges. As regards the stormwater utility, at least one alderman tried to justify the need for a $36,000 study because he or she doesn't know what questions to ask. My response was to ask basic questions. Why does the administration believe we need a stormwater utility? Do the city maintenance people not know how to evaluate the need for storm drain repairs or implementation? Aren't our city engineers capable of reading topography maps and requirements for storm drains? They give out permits. Do these engineers and employees not understand EPA requirements and controls? And if they don't, why are we employing them? Did city employees not alleviate the majority of flood problems over the past 5 or 6 years? How much of that flooding was due to sump pump failures? Has storm sewer maintenance schedule been established to not only inspect and repair storm sewers every few years to ensure that maple and other tree debris isn't allowed to sprout and clog drains? I've been out there at night when the storm drains were not maintained, and I helped clean those storm drains, and I keep my storm drains clean. So I know the city hasn't done it. A few years ago, I recall that at the very least, the homes in the First Ward were required to undergo a sump pump inspection to ensure that sump pumps were not draining into the sewer system and that the city was not processing sump water in the sanitary sewer system. So I asked for and received just today a map of where some of the drains double as sanitary and storm sewers, and I now would like to know why. When you know where these problems are, aren't we spending the $36,000 on separating these drains? And furthermore, why hasn't that problem been addressed for building and repairs in those areas? Why hasn't this problem been addressed on a maintenance schedule? When you know where the problems are, why do we need a study? When I read the bid for the stormwater utility and the response from the bidder, it became obvious that the study is not about maintaining our storm sewer and drainage. It is about establishing a new revenue stream. And it appears that staff has already decided we're going to have a stormwater utility, or at least a study, because the cost is already included in the budget for 2015, $36,000. The same is true for the brush and leaf pickup increase. It is already included in the 2015 budget. When I read the resolution supporting bid documentation, my immediate response was, if the city employees are going to be providing all the data to the bidding company, why do we need to pay them $36,000? Do we not have qualified engineering staff that should be able to analyze the data and determine the need for a stormwater utility? Wouldn't that $36,000 be better spent on maintenance of our current stormwater and drainage? If establishing a stormwater utility isn't a foregone conclusion, then why would a finance company be in charge of the study? Their expertise is in establishing a stormwater utility, and of course, from reading the documentation, their recommendation will be to establish a stormwater utility because they can collect even more money for design and implementation of the utility. Their emphasis appears to be on funding. Staff already has a capital improvement plan, and our engineers should be able to determine priorities and costs for those improvements and/or maintenance without incurring an additional $36,000 for a study. Brayburn Marsh was mentioned as part of the need for maintenance, but it is my understanding that the county is responsible for Brayburn Marsh. So why should Batavia residents have to pay both the county via real estate taxes and municipal taxes, as well as the city of Batavia for marsh maintenance? Additionally, if people own property bordering a marsh, they should know or should have known the potential for flooding and the need for possible maintenance. Therefore, if special maintenance of those flood areas is required, it should probably and more effectively be done via a special service area instead of unanimous stormwater utility charge. As previously stated, we are already required to follow EPA guidelines, and our discharge is already regulated by the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, NPDES, and the Kane County Stormwater Management Ordinance. Another reason not to establish a stormwater utility is because of the municipal utility tax and state utility taxes that will attach to the utility bill, not to mention the base service charge per homeowner that will no doubt continuously increase, just like our garbage pickup, brush pickup, sewer, water, and electric bills. It's max of empire building and feather bedding. When you establish utilities, you also risk more intervention by state and federal authorities, and you risk losing control of your facilities and causing unfunded mandates and additional reporting and inspection requirements. Sometimes it's better to keep your problems in-house rather than expose them. As regards streetscape, grants for facade, cheap rents, and funding business improvements, paying businesses to stay in Batavia, forgiving loans to art studios, these are all funded by our tax dollars that should be used for infrastructure maintenance and city management. Banks can make loans to businesses, and if the banks aren't willing to take the risk, why should the risk be placed on the backs of taxpayers? Streetscapes are essentially play pretties, and their economic benefit to the city of Batavia is questionable at best. I have yet to see where there has been any significant return on taxpayer investment via TIF projects and grants and loans. In fact, I would like to see a plain revenue versus cost schedule for businesses and addresses showing grant amounts, loan amounts, revenue increases or decreases, dates and length of time in the city after the grant, and how many times funds have been laid out for the same address after the business folded. What are the taxes paid and the return on the investment? Questions that were handed to me by another person are, how much has River Street improvement helped businesses on that street? Income increase, patron increase, etc. How much more did signs cost after the original cost was so low? Did it justify the means? The cost to have Route 25 study done twice, only to have the state make it unfeasible with stoplights and so on. What was the cost of buying up land, including the church, for Route 25 changes that will now not happen? What will a new parking structure cost taxpayers where the old church is located, and will it help all of downtown? Once the old church is gone and the parking structure is up, will the city want to use the high school field field house to collect toys and extras for Christmas? And he says, I'm not a Scrooge. What did it cost taxpayers for the Now Bridge study times 2, including the loss of land value to the owners where the bridge would be located? Do we really feel that the City of Energy logo is that offensive, since it was Fermilab that originally brought so many to Batavia in the first place? What was the cost to keep the depot pond filled when the dam finally wore down? We have a rubber stamp council, which I believe have champagne taste on a beer budget. When does BATV come out with its financial report? Can we see in-depth expenditures versus income report? Is a study made when buildings or homes are built that ultimately impacts the city's water and sewer systems? When new businesses come into the existing buildings, do they pay for the necessary upgrades? As I say, these were from someone else. After all this, I have some comments regarding the city administrator and all these last-minute emails to council members that they don't have time to thoroughly review before being asked to act upon them. I believe the city council gets backed into a corner by admin withholding crucial information until just before a council meeting, and certain council members seem to be privy to that information so they can force approval through a city council vote before the others get a chance to really study and understand what they're voting for. These are my observations, and based on my attendance at council and committee meetings and discussion with staff and council members, it's commonly known that when decision makers are put into a time crunch, that's when mistakes are made. The Prairie State Project is a good example. It seems that since home rule, there is an emphasis on resident revenue and non-essential expenditures being prioritized at the expense of general required maintenance. Instead of requiring admin and staff to do their own work, the emphasis seems to be on study, tax, and spend, and institute more revenue rather than emphasizing use of knowledge, expertise, and information that can be provided by our own employees. As Bill McGrath once said in a council meeting, home rule allows us to do anything we want so long as it is not prohibited by statute. While we citizens were pretty accepting of home rule, the latest sales tax increases and other proposed revenue stream increases are causing us to rethink whether or not to put the question of abolishing home rule on the ballot. The only reason we did not do it for the November election is due to our responsible questions of the effect it would have on current sales taxes and the electric utility lawsuit. However, we have until December 15th to petition the question on the 2015 spring ballot, and while it might be difficult, it's not impossible. Aside from that, there will be another election after the spring election. If things continue as there are, there will be even more reason to petition to abolish home rule. Thank you.
Okay, do we have anybody else from the public that wishes to address us this evening? All right, moving then to item number 8, which is presentation by the Batavia Chamber. Holly, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am here to discuss just a few events that we have coming up this month at the Chamber, and I do appreciate they talked a little bit about shopping local today, so please, I would like to encourage that as well. We want to welcome a few new members to the Chamber since my last visit. We have Kennedy and Company CPAs down here on Wilson Street. Daddy-O's Diner has come back to us after a little hiatus. Penrose Brewing, Best Way Rug and Furniture, and Seniors Helping Seniors of Fox Valley. So good things happening at the Chamber, bringing in some new members from both inside and outside of Batavia, so we're very excited at our growth. We have, I'm so appreciative of the Access Toy Committee and the work that they do, and we hold through the Chamber's Batavia Women in Business Council an annual toy drive for them through our networking event in December. So on December 9th, the Batavia Women in Business will hold their holiday luncheon, and through raffle prizes and donations, we will be collecting for Access Toy Committee and also Adopt a Family. So please register to attend that event with us at the Fox Valley Country Club on December 9th. Next, we have our Eggs Benefit, which is open and a free event for all of our members to come and learn about some new changes and hear about things that are happening at the chamber and how to make the most out of your chamber membership. So we encourage members to attend that. And we just today, I'm happy to announce, we closed the submission of nominations for Citizen of the Year, and we received 7 nominees this year, which is very good. And some of those are actually people that have been nominated in the past, but we keep a tally of everyone that has ever been nominated, and the mayor being a past recipient of the Citizen of the Year award, he and other members of that elite group come together once a year to review all of the nominations from previous years and this current year to make a selection again for the 2014 Citizen of the Year. So on in mid-December, they will be getting together to make that selection for us, and very excited about that. That will be given at our annual award celebration that will be held on January 30th. So wait to hear at the end of December for the selection of our Citizen of the Year for 2014.
Any questions of Holly? Thank you. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Appreciate your support of the Access Toy Drive.
Yep. Thank you all.
Okay, per the consent agenda, then we're going to move to item number 8A, which is which is shown as item 26 on our agenda, which is the leaf and brush fee increase. Alderman Wolf, do you have this one?
Actually, it was Government Services that
Alderman
voted.
Stark, do you have this one then?
I wasn't there, so I'm not sure.
Nobody has it.
Yeah. Did you handle it, Alan?
Well, I was the one that originally brought it up when we were going through the
Drew
budget
handled it.
discussion, so I guess I can talk about it.
Drew handled it, Alan.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I did it at the cow. So this was discussion of raising the leaf and brush collection fee for this year in this budget, or holding it off until a future date to be discussed perhaps next year. So it came out of the cow with a negative recommendation, with a lot of discussion on both sides, but the recommendation was that we hold the line and not increase the leaf and brush collection fee this year, and examine it for a future budget. So it's up now for a vote, or for consideration. So if we were to vote on it tonight, I guess, help me with when it comes with a negative recommendation, a yay or nay vote on it.
Let's get this straight. So
Make a motion in the affirmative, and then if you are not for it, you would vote no.
Right.
If you are for it, you would vote aye.
Okay, any discussion on the issue?
Yes.
Alderman Wolf?
I just feel like we're kicking the can down the road. We know we've just absorbed and eaten the additional expense for the past several years. Even if we were to raise it $1, that still does not cover the cost increases that we have absorbed the past 2 years. So I think everybody sitting up here is fooling themselves if they think we're not going to have to raise it at least $2 next year to cover it. We're looking at a 3-year, probably to me, a 3-year increase that should be about $1 a year to try to cover some of the costs of this. And, I wasn't here last week, so I didn't get to talk about it at that point, but it just amazes me that no one wanted to vote for that. I mean, I understand nobody wants to raise fees, nobody wants to raise taxes, but you also have to be realistic. And if you're not going to do it now, you're going to have to do it later. So that's all I have to say about it. I just think that this is just unrealistic and foolish if we think we're just going to push it away till next year, wait until after the election, whatever. I just think you have to be realistic. We should be increasing it, and instead of doing it all at once and hammering somebody on it, do it a little bit at a time.
Anybody else? Alderman Callahan?
I utterly respect your reasoning for why we would want to do this and why we want to fund it. I think it boils down to timing. I think being that it's covered this year under this budget, I wholeheartedly understand what you're saying with it. But I am okay with putting it off for next year because that gives us time to figure out what do we want our program to be? What do we want it to entail? I do think this is a program that people do use, they will pay for, and they do not mind paying for. I'm weighing in my decision that we are having the last of 3 rate increases ending this year. So some of what you're saying next year that it's going up, yes, but it'll be a little bit easier to be absorbed next year. So, but I do, absolutely, it is fiscally responsible, everything that you were saying about paying it on its own merits, and I respect that. But I think that this year, we wait.
Anybody else? Alderman Stark?
Of course, you all know that I don't support this. I think revenues could change. We might never have to do it. We could have a good sales tax year. I mean, why predict the future? I just, we didn't increase it when we had deficit budgets. And now we have a balanced budget, and who knows what if we have good other receipts and revenues, we might be able to cover the cost just fine. So I can't support it.
Anybody else? Alderman McFadden, I think I need to have you make a motion then for the approval of ordinance 14-69, which is amending the leaf and brush fee. And then you can vote against it, but I need you to make the motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 14-69, amending the leaf and brush fee.
Second.
Moved by Alderman McFadden, second by Alderman Stark for the approval of ordinance 14-69. Clerk, call the roll.
McFadden?
No.
Brown?
No.
Clark?
No.
Atack? No. Stark?
No.
Chanzit?
No.
Wolf?
Yes.
Fisher?
No.
O'Brien?
No.
Callahan?
No.
Homan? No. Sam?
No.
Vasilian?
No.
Saron?
No.
Ordinance 14-69 is defeated, 1 yes, 13 no. Okay, then we need, per the consent agenda, to move item 23 on our agenda to this point, which is the 2015 budget. Alderman Stark?
I always forget that this falls under me. Let me go back to the agenda. I'm just waiting on my computer. Okay. We, as a city council, have discussed the agenda, or the budget for several meetings, and have approved the budget in the COW as recently as, I have to find the number we're at. Here we are. As recently as 11/18, it was approved 8 yes, 1 no, 5 absent, and came out of Government Services with a positive recommendation. So Peggy Colby is here, and she could talk about the budget further if anyone would like to hear about any specific points of the budget. Otherwise, I would make a motion that we approve our 2015 budget resolution. I keep losing it on here. Budget. Is it, thank you, 23.
14-154-R.
Thank you, exactly. I had to find number 23. 14-154-R, the 2015 budget.
I would like to point out, at the COW meeting that the budget was approved at, the recommendation was that it be brought to council with the addition of the leaf and brush fee.
Oh, that's
So your motion should be either amended, or I don't know what the technical requirements are, to not include it, because it was not in the original budget, but there was a motion made by
I do
council.
remember that. Okay, so then the motion would be that we approve resolution 14-154R, the 2015 budget, without an increase in brush fee.
Second.
Okay, moved by Alderman Stark, second by Alderman Chanzit for the approval of Resolution 14-154-R, the 2015 budget, to reflect the removal of the brush fee. Any discussion?
Yes, Your Honor, I would like to make one point clear. This is not a balanced budget. This is a 3.6 698 deficit budget, 3,698,000, just for clarity. We are taking money out of reserves. Is that what I read in there?
No. When you talk about a municipal budget being balanced or not, you need to talk about operations. Our operations budget is a balanced budget.
The operations side.
Okay, so that 3 million that you're talking about is what we're taking out of our savings account for infrastructure and capital projects. So it's money that we've been putting aside to build a new garage, and now we're building the garage. But we are not spending more money on day-to-day operations than we're taking in.
That is one question that I've had from people that have gone online and read the budget because it shows the deficit.
I know they don't, municipal accounting is a little different. And our safeguard is our, we have a reserve policy that says we never let our savings go below a certain level. If we spent, if we went below that level, then I think that would be a cause for some concern, and I think it might be easier for you to kind of talk in the way of it not being a balanced budget. So that's my only comment.
Other questions? Clerk, call the roll.
Stark?
Aye.
Transit?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Fisher?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Homan?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Vasilian?
Aye.
Saron?
Aye.
McFadden?
Aye.
Brown? Clark? Atack?
Aye.
Resolution 14-154-R as amended is approved by a vote of 14 yes, no nos, none absent. Okay, moving back to the agenda, obviously we're going to remove items 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 because of the previous motion to table, but I think we should have a motion on the floor to adjourn the public hearing. I should have done that at the end of the last vote, but we need to.
So moved.
Second.
Move by Alderman Stark, second by Alderman Chanzit to adjourn the public hearing on the special service areas for storm drainage. Clerk, call the roll.
Stark?
Aye.
Transit?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Fisher?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Homan?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Vasilian?
Aye.
Saron?
Aye.
McFadden?
Aye.
Brown? Clark? Atack?
Aye.
Okay, moving then to item number 14 on our agenda, which is ordinance 14-65, revising the text of the zoning ordinance. Alderman Brown, do you have this one?
Your Honor, I was out at the Fermi Lab function that evening along with you and a couple of the other aldermen, so Alderman Atack could handle that.
Alderman Atack?
Okay, ordinance 14-65 amends the City of Batavia zoning code, Title 10 of the City Code, Chapter 2.8 Parks and Open Space to allow for seasonal sales for non-for-profits, Chapter 4.1 Site Regulations to prohibit construction of structures on drainage and city easements, and Chapter 4.6 Non-conforming uses, lots, parcels, structures, and signs to delete the section about paving driveways because it's included in another section. These changes were initiated or identified by city staff because they work with the code most regularly and approved by the Plan Commission on November 5th. Is there any questions? Are there any questions? Okay. I move that we pass ordinance 14-65, amending the City of Batavia zoning code, Title 10 of the City Code.
Second.
Move by Alderman Atack, second by Alderman Brown for the approval of ordinance 14-65, revising the text of the zoning code. Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Atack?
Aye.
Stark?
Aye.
Transit?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Fisher?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Homan?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Vasilian?
Aye.
Saron? McFadden?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Clark?
Ordinance 14-64, revising the text of the zoning code is approved, 14 yes, no nos, none absent. Moving to item number 15, which is approval to waive formal bidding for purchase of truck equipment. Alderman Wolf, do you have this?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a street division truck that's used at the cemetery, includes equipment for the conversion of the truck over to dump body, plow, and emergency lighting. It will be utilized for day-to-day work at the cemetery and also used by other divisions for plowing. The chassis was already purchased for $32,000, and the additional equipment is $27,951. We had budgeted $65,000 for this in the budget this year, and we actually came in way under budget on that at $65,000. So with that explanation, if anybody has any questions, I would recommend approval of Resolution 14-151-R, authorization to waive formal bidding with Bunnell Industries for a total of $27,951.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Wolf, second by Alderman O'Brien for the approval of the motion to waive formal bidding. I think we need to handle that
That's
first,
right.
and then take the motion on buying the truck. So we need a motion,
For formal bidding, to waive formal bidding.
We have a motion to waive formal bidding on the purchase of the truck for the street department.
Second.
We have a motion, second. Call the roll.
Wolf?
Aye.
Fisher?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan? Homan? Sam?
Aye.
Vasilian?
Aye.
Surratt?
He's indisposed at the
Oh,
moment.
sorry. He will be absent for this one. McFadden?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Clark? Atack?
Aye.
Stark?
Aye.
Chanzit?
Okay, that... No, not during the meeting. We recognize the audience only at given times. We just can't turn this into a free-for-all. Okay, that one is approved, 13 yes, no no's, 1 absent. Okay, moving then to item number 16, which is Resolution 14-151-R, authorizing purchase of truck equipment from Bonnell Industries. Alderman Wolf?
What I just explained, this is the actual purchase of the equipment. I'd make a recommendation that we approve Resolution 14-151-R, authorization to purchase the truck equipment from Bonnell Industries for a total of $27,951.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Wolf, second by Alderman O'Brien for the purchase of, authorizing the purchase of the truck from Bonnell Industries in the amount of $27,951 with the approval of Resolution 14-151-R. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Wolf?
Aye.
Fisher?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan? Homan? Sam?
Aye.
Vasilian?
Aye.
Surratt? McFadden?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Clark? Atack?
Aye.
Stark?
Aye.
Chanzit?
Aye.
Resolution 14-151-R is approved, 14 yes, no no's, none absent. Moving to item number 17, which is Resolution 14-142-R, budget amendment for separation of motor fuel tax funds. Alderman Stark, do you have this, please?
Thank you, Your Honor. There are 4 budget resolutions that were on the COW agenda for November 18th meeting. The resolutions are necessary to adjust for changes that have occurred since the passage of the original 2014 budget. So we'll take these one at a time. The first is Resolution 14-142R, which is an amendment to separate the motor fuel tax fund into 2 separate funds. The fund included monies from motor fuel tax received from the state and funds transfers from our general fund. We are separating these monies into 2 separate funds to ease in the state's auditing of our motor fuel tax funds. This resolution does not provide for any increased spending. The resolution moves the budget for non-motor fund fuel tax projects into the new Fund 43. There is also a large budget amendment to provide for an inter-fund transfer to move the cash balance of the non-MFT funds at the end of the year. So I make a motion that we approve Resolution 14-142R, amending the motor fuel tax fund.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Stark, second by Alderman Chanzit for the approval of Resolution 14-142-R, the separation of the motor fuel tax funds. Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Stark? Aye. Chanzit?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Fisher?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Homan?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Vasilian?
Aye.
Surratt?
Aye.
McFadden?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Clark? Atack?
Aye.
Resolution 14-142-R is approved, 14 yes, no no's, none absent. Moving to item number 18, which is Resolution 14-143-R, budget amendment for economic development. Alderman Stark.
This is, just as you explained, this amendment is a net increase to spending for the general fund of $767,167,000. And so I make a motion that we approve Resolution 14-143R.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Stark, second by Alderman Chanzit for the approval of Resolution 14-143-R, Amendment for Economic Development. Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Stark?
Aye.
Transit?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Fisher?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Homan?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Vasilian?
Aye.
Saron?
Aye.
McFadden?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Clark? Atak?
Aye.
Resolution 14-143-R is approved, 14 yes, no nos, none absent. Moved to item number 19, which is Resolution 14-144-R, Budget Amendment for Transfer of Home Rule Sales Taxes. Alderman Stark, please.
This amendment provides the electric utility with the benefit of home rule sales tax that was enacted on July 1st, 2014. The amendment will provide for more than what will be collected in the calendar year 2014. The payment of the additional home rule sales tax will be spread out over a 4-year period to provide a level benefit. This resolution will result in decreased revenue for the general fund in 2014 in the amount of $507,000 and will provide reduced expenses for the electric utility of $1,457,000. So I make a motion that we approve Resolution 14-144R.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Stark, second by Alderman Chanzit for the approval of Resolution 14-144-R, Budget Amendment for Transfer of Home Rule Sales Tax. Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Stark? Aye. Transit?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Fisher?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Homan?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Vasilian?
Aye.
Saron?
Aye.
McFadden?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Atak?
Aye.
Resolution 14-144-R is approved, 14 yes, no nos, none absent. Moving to item number 20, which is Resolution 14-156-R, Budget Amendment for Purchase Power. Alderman Stark, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is the last budget amendment. This is an amendment to the purchase power budget to account for increased cost of the city's purchase power contract through NIMPA and for additional power costs through the daily market earlier in the year for weather-related events that triggered extreme power prices. I move that we pass Resolution 14-156R.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Stark, second by Alderman Chanzit for the approval of Budget Amendment, Resolution 14-156-R, Budget Amendment for Purchase of Power. Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Stark?
Aye.
Transit?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Fisher?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Homan?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Vasilian?
Aye.
Saron?
Aye.
McFadden?
Aye.
Brown? Clark? Atak?
Aye.
Resolution 14-156-R, Budget Amendment for Purchase of Power is approved, 14 yes, no nos, none absent. Moving to item 21 on the agenda, which is Resolution 14-152-R, Authorization to bind liability and property insurance coverage. Alderman Stark, do you have this one?
I do. The City of Batavia's insurance coverage for property liability and workman's compensation expires on November 30th, 2014. And Batavia has a broker, Arthur J. Gallagher, and a third-party administrator, Employers Claim Service, and we had them obtain quotes for coverage. And so it's as outlined in our insurance documents from Resolution 14-152R, we are resolving to give the city authorization to bind insurance. And so I make a motion that we approve Resolution 14-152R.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Stark, second by Alderman Chanzit for the approval of Resolution 14-152-R. Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Stark?
Aye.
Transit?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Fisher?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Homan?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Vasilian?
Aye.
Saron?
Aye.
McFadden?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Atak?
Aye.
Resolution 14-152-R is approved, 14 yes, no nos, none absent. Move to item number 22, which is Resolution 14-153-R, authorization to bind health insurance stop-loss insurance coverage and life insurance coverage. Alderman Stark?
Thank you. This is very similar to the last resolution, although this is stop-loss and employee life insurance, which terminated on November 30th at 2014. So we needed to, again, present a resolution to give authorization to bind insurance. So I move that we pass Resolution 14-153R, authorization to bind insurance.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Stark, second by Alderman Chanzit for the approval of Resolution 14-153-R, authorization to bind health insurance, stop-loss insurance coverage, and life insurance. Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Stark?
Aye.
Transit?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Fisher?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Homan?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Vasilian?
Aye.
Saron?
Aye.
McFadden?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Atak?
Aye.
Okay, Resolution 14-153-R is approved, 14 yes, no nos, none absent. Moving to item 23 was already handled, so we'll move to item 24, which is Resolution 14-150-R, approval of power sales agreement with Rubicon Technologies for calendar year 2015 for an amount of no less than $1,400,000. Alderman Clark, you have this, please.
Thank you. In September, the City Council authorized the mayor to execute a power sales agreement with Rubicon for an amount of no less than $1.6 million. This value was calculated based on quantity of power projected by Rubicon as well as projected market price. After looking at the prices in the market, Rubicon elected to increase their market exposure and decrease the amount contracted with Batavia. As a result, the total amount of the contract will be less than the 1.6, so that's why we are passing this resolution to change the amount from 1.6 to $1.4 million. So I will make a motion to approve Resolution 14-150R, approval of power sales agreement with Rubicon Technology, Inc. for the calendar year 2015 for an amount of no less than $1.4 million.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Clark, second by Alderman Chanzit for the approval of Resolution 14-150-R, the Rubicon Technologies Power Sales Agreement. Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Clark?
Aye.
Atak?
Aye.
Stark?
Aye.
Transit?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Fisher?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Homan?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Vasilian?
Aye.
Saron? McFadden?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Resolution 14-150-R is approved, 14 yes, no nos, none absent. Okay, moving to item number 25, which is ordinance 14-72, driveway permit fee. Who's got this one? Alderman Wolf, do you
I
have
believe
this?
I had that from earlier JCOW, or COW meeting. The City of Batavia has been requiring permits for the right-of-way portion of driveways for several years. Now, feel like with some of the issues we've dealt with over the past year or so, that we need to institute a fee to control the driveway portion of it, because we've had so many problems with damage outside of the scope of the actual driveway work. The good thing about this is this would also be able to allow us to utilize bonds to complete work that the contractor, if they were to damage something in doing the work. I know the building department has been chasing a lot of problems with both right-of-way and private side section of the driveways over the past year or so, so I know that's something that they really felt is needed. For the fee proposed for the permits would be a fee of $55, and this would cover either section or both. It would both be under that one fee. There would not be a duplicate fee for either section of the driveway. And they do believe that that would cover the costs for the 2 inspections required as part of the permit. So with that, if no one has any questions, I would recommend that we approve ordinance 14-72, implementation of permits and a fee for driveways.
Second.
Your Honor.
Alderman Wolf, second by Alderman O'Brien. Alderman Brown, you have a
I just think it's important to make mention that staff thought this was important to do so that they could assist our residents. Quite often, we have contractors come into town that maybe aren't giving the homeowner what they are supposed to be getting because the homeowner just trusts the contractor that they're giving what the code requires, and that when the contractor tells them, oh, you can do this or you can do that, they trust that contractor. And up until now, there hasn't been any way that staff could assist in making sure that the homeowner is doing everything he's supposed to do and getting what he's supposed to get. So I applaud the staff for wanting to actually increase their workload in order to give a better service to the resident.
Any other comments? Clerk, call the roll then on ordinance 14-72, the driveway permit fee.
Wolf?
Aye.
Fisher?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Homan?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Vasilian?
Aye.
Saron?
Aye.
McFadden?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Atack?
Aye.
Stark? Aye. Chanzit?
Aye.
Ordinance 14-72 is approved, 14 yes, no nos, none absent. Item 26 has already been handled. Moving to 27, which is Resolution 14-155-R, execution of agreement with Municipal Finance Services Group for a stormwater utility feasibility study in the amount of $36,217. Who's got this one? Alderman
O'Brien, as I was absent from that meeting.
Okay.
Dating back to May 2012, we've been in discussions for a stormwater utility. It's been somewhat contentious as of late, but staff is recommending that we authorize an execution of an agreement for a feasibility study. So I would make a motion to pass Resolution 14-155-R, authorizing execution of agreement with Municipal Financial Services Group relating to stormwater utility feasibility study, Phase 1 study, and it is not to exceed cost of $36,217. I do want to make note that it has been budgeted for in the 2014 budget. Any discussions?
You make a motion?
I thought I just made it.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Alderman O'Brien, second by Alderman Wolf for the approval of Resolution 14-155-R, the financial study for the stormwater utility. Any further discussion? Alderman Callahan?
I had a question on, I had an understanding of what we were voting on this before, and I'll burn myself. I was one of the ones that didn't know a couple of the, some of the questions to ask, and I would rather at least have those questions asked rather than not knowing. So I know that Ms. Dinwiddie had asked a couple of the questions. Is it possible to get a couple of those answers to some of the things that she raised?
Kane County doesn't pay for all of the marsh. As it turns out, the city of Batavia does have to pay for a portion of it. So on behalf of the residents of the 3rd Ward, I would ask for the council's support on this.
Oh, no, I wasn't actually talking about the Rayburn Marsh.
I just want to answer one of her questions.
Okay. No, specifically, I believe there was the stormwater going out of residences, because I know my house was one of the streets that a few years ago, they came and checked all of the houses, and turns out that we weren't told, but somebody had reconfigured the storm through the sewer. But some of the questions that she did raise about who pays for that, and the other items that she did bring up, does it have any bearing on this study? Will we find those answers out? Do we need to find those out first? Or is it, because I was looking at this as a way of an education about the process and finding, is there a need, is there not a need? So it did make sense to me, but some of the questions that were brought up, I think, are also valid to at least hear them out.
I think, for me, it's the first part. There are 3 phases to an engineering project, and this is the first part, the feasibility of it, find out what's needed, what's required, and then you go into the design phase. So this is just the first step to get to a stormwater utility. I believe we need a stormwater utility here in Batavia. We pay for it through out of our general fund right now.
I know in the first ward, we have major flooding in any major storm event. I know we have the same thing in the third ward. I'm sure throughout the whole city, there are flooding going on in people's homes. What the stormwater utility would do is, right now, the water just goes, it tries to find whatever sewer is available. So now we're going to try to direct the water where we want it to go. In my ward, we have in the first ward, we have the McKee tributary. Not the McKee tributary, Mahoney Creek tributary. And that floods all the time. So now this is a way to keep that from flooding. It's a way to manage that. We manage where our stormwater goes. Another thing that was brought up is combination sewers. Well, we have in our downtown combination sewers where we're now treating stormwater from I&I infiltration into the pipes that go into our combination sewer, and you have stormwater that goes into it, gets washed at our wastewater treatment facility. At that wastewater treatment facility, we're at near capacity right now. So what we're doing is making it much more inefficient, thank you, to keep it going. But it's the county has made $36,000. Why don't we change that? To just dig open the street and start separating sewers is it's costly. And it's $36,000 will just get you trenching it, and not even touching pipes, and then you have to fill it. So I believe it's necessary. I believe we then can control our costs in time on where the stormwater goes, and we can monitor our costs on how we're paying for all of this. I just think it's an important step. It's not going to happen, as we said, next year. It's going to take a 2, 3, 4-year process, but this is just getting us to get started, and we do need to get started to control it. We have, in some of the newer subdivisions, we have stormwater piping that's relatively new, so they're in good shape. It's a better quality pipe, so we're doing fine with that. But in the oldest sections of the city, there's just a great deal of maintenance that we have to do. We'll have to continue to do it, but at least we're controlling our costs and monitoring our costs with that.
And that's why I want to make sure that everything that you're saying is what the intent of, not the intent, but the actual what's carried out in that gives us those answers, because I really do want that. I do know that your area is a problem area, same as certain areas in 3 and in 2. It is an issue that we do need to definitely address. I don't have a problem with that. I just was questioning some of the things that she said where we're supplying. I wish you had told me beforehand some of the
Give you a copy. Maybe you can spread it about to everyone.
I know it was the question of, are we giving the data to the engineering company, thereby paying money to have somebody look at our own data? I think that's just a valid question to just make sure. Understanding that they do have to have some data in order to give us the product that we want. So I just want to make sure that what you're wanting is absolutely what you're getting.
Well, I think, these firms that we've contacted, I guess there was 8 of them, and staff selected this one company. I believe Municipal Financial Services Group from Annapolis, Maryland, they're going to work in conjunction with Baxter Woodman. Baxter Woodman is a very good firm. This is what they do. I know that they represent the city of the village of Plainfield and their stormwater utility and in whatever civil engineering requirements that they have. So these firms, this is what they do every day, all day. Our engineering staff here, as it's shrinking, nonetheless, this is not what they do every day, all day. They're involved in a lot of other things. And this is just, we'll be taxing them over the limit, I believe. And so we're just giving it to the people that this is what they do. And that's why I would say we go out to get a firm that's just a qualified firm.
I'd like to weigh in. I just verified with Gary that the Main Street reconstruction project that we're doing is going to be separating stormwater from sanitary. And so we're taking an active step in making that separation. But as Mike was saying, it's hugely expensive to do that. And if this study helps us build the financial model to understand how we stage those expensive replacements, how we finance that, how we finance the expansion of the sewage plant, which is also going to be hugely expensive, then I think it's $36,000 well spent. But we are actively taking that first step to separate storm and sewage, the big part of the cost of Main Street.
Anytime it makes financial sense to do it. We don't go out and dig up a street just to do it.
Right.
But if we have the street torn up, we're going to do it while we've got it apart.
Right. Yeah. Yvonne was kind enough to call me last week, and she and I talked for, 20 minutes or so about this whole subject, and I told her that I'm not really ready to sign on to a stormwater utility at this moment, but I think there are some important fact-finding that needs to be done, and this is a problem that's not going to go away, for the foreseeable future by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, as the city engineer just told us, I mean, we know that we got to do some serious work on the southwest side of town because that's an older neighborhood. It's got the original combined sewers in it, and that's very problematic. And most of these combined sewers are in the older parts of the community, and as we rebuild the streets, we're going to be able to do it, but this will give us hopefully some financial understanding. The one thing that I'm very interested in, which hopefully this study, I guess, as I'm told, is going to present, is there's going to give us some comparisons to what some other towns are charging. And then, I may have some questions about, those other towns and why they're having to charge so much, and I think I know some of the answers, but I'd like to see it per se, but this will give us that. And then the other question I have is that I'm anxious to see what our neighboring communities are doing about this, because at the end of the day, here comes Batavia, and we're going to take a giant step here, supposedly at some future date, and go ahead and do all kinds of stormwater management and clean the Fox River better with how our discharge take place. But I just want to make sure we're not the only one that's doing it. Not that I don't want it to see us being a cutting edge, but I want us way out here ahead of everybody else, and while we're cleaning it, everybody else is continuing to pollute it. I mean, that's going to be totally counterproductive. So I think there's a wider spread communication that hopefully documents like this will help to breed that, if Batavia is going to go to the degree of finding this out, then we're going to have to say to our neighbors, specifically to the north of us, if we're going to get down here and spend all this money cleaning the Fox River and making our discharges that much better, you folks are going to have to come to the table and do the same thing. And I just think there's a momentum here that probably needs to be done. It's a issue that we're all going to have to face, and those of you who sit on the city councils in the future, this is not going to go away. This is going to be here. And so, I just think this is an initial, as Alderman O'Brien has just so well said, this is just an initial first step on what is going to be an elongated process of trying to put all this together. But we need this data, we need the information, and I have faith that our staff and the engineering staff that we will be hiring soon, hopefully to replace those we've lost, will be able to help put this together and give us some answers to some of the key questions that are there. So I just think it's good policy to do this.
I agree. And if I could just get these questions to staff, maybe they can answer some of the questions that were brought up tonight so that we can address them.
I just want to also just continue with it, just as you were saying, Mayor, it's just that with being out there, if we do the stormwater utility and being out there, I think as though we're going to say as Batavia is a leading community, and it is the future. I mean, communities are going to go this route. They're going to have to. It's leading in sustainable design as we do today. And I think we're rated a gold community in sustainable design with our paper recycling and copying and what we've done on the roof and what we've done on our public works roof. So I just think it's sustainable design is here. It's going to be the future, and we're in it. And this is just another part of it. And so I think this will be a good way to lead the Fox Valley, as we've been doing. So.
All right. Any other discussion? I think we beat that one to death. Very good. Did we get a second? Do we have a motion?
Yeah, we have a-
Okay, we have a motion and second for the approval of Resolution 14-155-R for the stormwater utility feasibility study. Clerk, call the roll.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Callahan. Homan.
Aye.
Sam.
Aye.
Vasilian.
Aye.
Saron.
Aye.
McFadden.
Aye.
Brown.
Aye.
Clark. Atak.
Aye.
Stark.
Aye.
Transit.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Resolution 14-155-R is approved, 14 yes, no nos, none absent. Okay, 28 was removed on action of the consent agenda, so we will move then to, we added the agenda, which is the next item, which is the removal of, under the consent agenda of the Cow minutes for 10:21 and 10:28. We wanted to move that to this point. And Alderman Vasilian, you wanted to make some comments?
I did. Thank you, Your Honor. The reason I asked for it to come off the consent agenda is we've had ongoing discussions about the assistant administrator and the HR position, and there's been comments and conversation that have been both pro and con talked about in our council meetings, but I don't see any of the con comments or those concerns, that particularly myself, that I raised appearing in the minutes. And for the record, I'm not sure which dates I made the comments that I made, but it concerns me that those comments aren't in any of the minutes, that the minute conversations that I see, and I've gone back through a number of meetings, are all favorable, 100% favorable to the plan as it's proposed. So it's only about making sure that the comments are accurately reported. I understand that minutes are not, that they are summaries of what's discussed, that they're not, word by word verbatim, but I want to see them accurately reflected.
You have something you'd like to add to the minutes at this point in time? Do you have some particular sentiments you wanted to express, or?
Sure, I do. That some of the questions that I raised before were, one is I think that our search should be broadened to include private sector experience and qualifications. That the way it's been talked about in earlier discussions, Bill's opinion was that we should be hiring we deserve the very best. We should have someone with at least 5 years municipal experience. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that there are people in the private sector who have an equivalent amount of experience and would be equally well qualified to do this. Why limit ourselves to just the public sector? I talked about combining some of these positions. We did talk about that when you add a body, you've added a body forever. So, if a person can do more than one of these jobs, why not? Randy Reckloss, who everyone talks about glowingly, because he was an excellent employee. He served multiple functions and did them well. So if this job search can find somebody that not only takes care of the HR requirements, but maybe can handle communication or handle some of the other administrative things, why not? Why not have that flexibility in the job search? Third thing that concerns me is that when we had conversations about extending Bill's contract, one of the compelling reason, at least compelling to me, to do that was the whole argument about continuity. That everyone said continuity is really important here. That we're really in an ideal situation. We've got a year and a half to bring on a potential successor, groom that person, and have a seamless transition. And everybody's head nodded up and down. We all like that idea. But then now that's being said as being not that important. That we don't have to have that. That some communities only have a 2-hour conversation between the outgoing person and the incoming person. The argument doesn't seem to be consistent in this. Is it important that we have continuity? Is it important that we have a potential successor? To me, it is. It's a great opportunity, and I'd like to see us pursue that. And those are comments I don't see reflected in the minutes anywhere, and that bothers me. And that's why I wanted it to come off.
All right, I did a little research, because I actually don't have anything to do with the JCAL minutes. But these two sets of minutes were approved at the November 18th JCAL meeting. I did find that on the agendas, which is why they moved to this agenda, because the body had already approved them as being an accurate reflection. So JCAL approved those minutes. So that's probably where your objection should have been.
Okay.
Just so you know. That's why they were put on. So that was the November 18th, if I recall correctly, where these two sets of minutes were approved. They don't just move to the city council agenda.
Understood that. And if I missed the opportunity to raise that at that time, then is that the night of the Fermilab? So I wasn't there that night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could just vote no. You could vote no on approval.
Well, and just, I would just like to see those comments incorporated whenever they actually occurred. Was it those two meetings? I'm not sure.
And I know for me personally, this is why I will send out the minutes, the minutes appear in advance on the agenda, and I have had people say, wait a second, I want to clarify that, or I think that sentence is written oddly, and things like that, and they get back to me, and there are alterations made also at that point. Not alterations, alterations, I want to be clear.
Sometimes they're altercations, yeah. Do the minutes get edited? Or as you prepare them, is that the way they go out to everyone?
As I prepare them, that's the way they go out to everybody. And again, if people will come to me with concerns, and sometimes we can pull them off and vote on them another time also, if it's anything substantive. Which you're talking about substantive things. A lot of times it's really very non-substantive stuff that gets changed.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So, like I said, I can't really speak to the JCAL minutes. I only know how I do the city council ones.
Right.
Okay, as long as Alderman Vasilian brought this up, let me just kind of relate to you my understanding of what we are kind of planning to do here, and which would be my intention, so that everybody at this table understands. We've all been told that Mr. McGrath has intentions. He served us with notice that he's planning to retire mid-year of 2016. My intention is that in the middle part of the coming year, in 2015, we will begin the search for his replacement. And the city council and myself will be in charge of that, and we will do that. And we will, at that point in time, have any final discussions about who we're going to include in the search, how it's going to be done, and the council and myself, we're the ones that are going to have to work with them, so we're the ones that should be doing this particular job. I mean, we can't hand this off to a staff person or whatever. This has to be done by this group, because this is the number one position. So my intention would be that mid-year of this coming year, we will begin that process. Now, I'm thinking that we're going to obviously have to advertise this and put the word out that we're interested, and then have some time come back for submitting applications, give us all a chance to review those applications, see who we got, decide who we want to interview, and then go through the interview process. And it would be my hope that by, the end of the summer or the beginning of the fall, we will kind of wind that down, and we'll get kind of, hopefully, somebody in mind and get an offer on to who we're going to hire at that point in time. Bring that person on board, and what I really would like to see is that next year, by this time, we got that person sitting here, working with Mr. McGrath on a day-to-day basis, kind of picking up all the things that he's dealing with and kind of getting a feel for the community and how things work and whatever. But I think it's very important that, number one, that person be here and be able to go through a budget process and see how this all works and how it's all understood. And that secondly, we may very well have some human resource contracts that are going to be negotiated, so we'll bring that person into that particular discussion with hopefully this human resources director position that we really need to fill, quite honestly, immediately, in my opinion. And that then, as the transition takes place at the beginning of 16, we'll have Mr. McGrath here, and we'll have his replacement here, and those two will work together. And then when Mr. McGrath retires, we will then have the opportunity, if we so choose, and if the new administrator so chooses, and he will be able to say, he or she will be able to say, I'd like to have an assistant, or whatever, and then that person will have the opportunity to hire his own or his or her own assistant as to who they would like to recommend, because they're going to be working with. I think it would be bad for us right now to go out and hire an assistant administrator and bring somebody in with the idea that, oh, we may want to hire you as the administrator. Well, then we get them in here and we find out, well, this person isn't working out, and then we go out and hire somebody else to be the administrator. Well, then we got a situation where we got an assistant that hasn't been hired by the new person. I just think it's setting ourselves up for some problematic issues. Whereas if we do it the way, because we're already going to have, a new administrator in waiting, and we're going to have Mr. McGrath here, and hopefully those two together can work and handle anything instead of having 3 people, we'll have 2, and I like the budgetary aspects of that. And then this will hopefully make for a very smooth transition, because hopefully the new person will get 6 months or whatever it will be to work with Mr. McGrath, and then he or she can then take over and move forward and say, well, I need to have an assistant administrator, and let that person kind of run that search and bring that to you for your review and approval. And so at all times at this level, I expect this council to be working with me on a very close basis, that we review, number one, how we're going to hire, who we're going to hire, and, go forth at that point in time. So
And I agree with all of that. I think that's all that makes great sense. My concern was that the discussion didn't reflect both those perspectives. And I know that a number of us, especially the new aldermen, the historic record of these meetings are important. That's how we get caught up to speed with decisions that have been made in the past. I know, like, a number of us have done a lot of reading about Prairie State decisions, for example, stuff like that. So these minutes are important. They're a historic record, and I just want them to accurately reflect both sides of the conversation.
Right, so my question right now is, these JCOW minutes have not been approved by the entire city council because they were pulled off the consent agenda.
They were probably approved by the majority of the cow that were there that night.
Right, but since you have such concerns, and Bill, no? The tapes?
They're not on this agenda for approval.
Oh, okay.
They're on this agenda for acceptance and put on file.
Okay.
And Steve, if you you can make a motion at JCOW to, amend or say that you wish these comments have been added, and those will be in that minutes. Once minutes are done and approved, they can never be changed. But you can make your new comments at the next record, and then they'll be in the record going forward. So
it needs to be done at JCOW level.
It needs to be done at the JCOW level to either change them before they're approved or to put it on the record, in that JCOW for something that you would have wanted added. We've gone through it a few times with Kevin, and you just can't, once that document is approved, you can't go back and change it. Just that.
Why not?
They voted on it.
We vote on things and change it on other things.
I'm not going to argue with you.
No, I'm not going to argue.
I'm just telling what Kevin Drundle has advised us, that once the committee accepted that document is in history, it's already been voted on, and then if you want to make a motion after that and say, this should have been in there, then he says that comment gets put into those new minutes, and so then you're protected and you're on the record, et cetera, and he said that's,
Alderman Vasilian, talking to the clerk here, I think what I would suggest is we've heard what you had to say. I'll have her include that in our minutes of this meeting, that you made those comments and expressed those concerns in reaction to the minutes that had been approved at the JCOW. So there will be a record of it. It'll be on public record and will be part of this meeting.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, moving then to item number 29, which is the proposed staff changes, and this is the creation of the human resources position.
We have to accept those minutes.
We haven't accepted those minutes yet.
I make a motion to accept both of those minutes that were pulled off the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Chanzit, second by Alderman Clark for the acceptance of the minutes. Any discussion further? Clerk, call the roll.
Chanzit?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Fisher?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Homan?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Vasilian?
No.
Saron? McFadden?
Aye.
Brown? Clark?
Aye.
Atack?
Aye.
Stark?
Aye.
It was 13 yes, 1 no, minutes are approved. Okay, then moving, because we've already acted, we've taken 28 off the agenda, we've responded to item 28A, and so what we want to do then is move to 29, which is approval of the proposed staff change, and that's creation of the Human Resources Director position. Bill's put out a memo on it, and I would tell you that it's certainly my recommendation that this is a position, quite honestly, we need to fill. There is a lot of problematic issues at the HR level on an ongoing basis, specifically as we are faced with a number of employee negotiation situations that we have to enter into ASAP. And the Illinois State Legislature, literally as we sit here, is down in Springfield the last couple of weeks, passing some other interesting pieces of legislation that could have some pretty dramatic impacts on our abilities to deal with employees. And the one that's got everybody's attention is this minimum manning thing that the arbitrator has now been empowered to direct the city to have. And let me just tell you that the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, I've never seen the group so tied up in upset positions about something as that one. So I don't know where we're going. The governor hasn't signed it yet, the last I knew, but it got through the legislature. And the charge in the Mayor's Caucus is that what we got going here is a labor arbitrator coming into some city someplace and making some arbitrating decisions on manning, which are going to greatly impact the ability of the city to pay for that manning, which basically translates into an elected official losing the power to oversee the tax increase or the decrease and giving it to a labor arbitrator. And the other concern that is out there amongst the cities is that there's a feeling that this one opens up a whole degree of can of worms with other employee groups beyond the firefighters are going to be down there asking for this same agreement from the Illinois General Assembly. So there's no knowing where this all stops. So we got that on our plate suddenly, and we've got all these HR negotiations going on, and some of this stuff gets to be quite protracted, involved, and we really need to bring somebody online here that can work with the city administration on a day-to-day basis. And then we end up with a number of other employee HR-related things like disability issues and insurance issues of a higher level that have to be rectified. So we've got a pile full of work for this person to do. We really need to hire this person, and I would recommend that we do so. Somebody want to make a motion for the approval of the staff change and the creation of the Human Resources Director position?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Chanzit, second by Alderman Stark. Do we have any discussion? Alderman Zicilian?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, read through the education and experience, and it looks like you set this up so that somebody with a non-governmental background that has an equivalent experience would be eligible to apply. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, because that's how it looked to me. I just wanted to make sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Bill and I talked about that specifically, and that was, we agreed that was...
That's what it looked like. I just wanted to make sure, so thank you.
And Alderman Callahan?
I just believe that the hard part about separating out the assistant administrator position with the HR person is we had some people that were really good in that assistant administrator position, so it kind of spoiled. But when you step back and just look at the position, not the person that's going into that, you realize that we are in dire need of an HR person who is just stellar. So I think that that's where our focus needs to be right now, and I think that this meets that need. And we can worry about the other things, but the more pressing concern is getting the person in place that is competent and is a rock star, just like other people that we have.
And you see how this person may work, and it may work out very well, and maybe then a year and a half from now, we decide to recombine them or do whatever. So, I mean, I think there's a great possibility.
Yeah, that is the concern, that you could always put them together later if you want to, if you've got that person, but the need is for HR.
The more I thought about it, I really thought it was a good idea not to go out and hire an assistant administrator when you're going to hire an administrator shortly thereafter, because if that assistant doesn't elevate to the level that you want to promote him, that's very problematic then to bring somebody in and make them their boss, and then that person's sitting there, and then this new guy or gal's got to deal with that person. I think having their own team or their own assistant is, if you're going to have that position, and that's something you'll have to decide, there's going to have to be some good feeling going on there before we start sticking people with other people. Okay, we have a motion and second for the proposal to create the Human Resources Director. Clerk, call the roll.
Chanzit?
Aye.
Wolf? Fisher?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan? Homan? Sam?
Aye.
Vasilian?
Aye.
Saron?
Aye.
McFadden?
Aye.
Brown? Clark? Atak?
Aye.
Stark? Aye.
Motion is approved, 14 yes, no no's, none absent. Thank you very much. Moving to item 30, the Administrator's Report. Mr. McGrath.
Thanks from me, too. This is a really attractive community, and I think we'll have, you won't have any problems finding somebody who will really be professional support. As we've said before, that's really turned into a specialty. People go through school just for that, so I think we'll have some good candidates. Just three things. The leaf pickup program formally is over for the year. However, if people still want to rid their property of the leaves, other than mulching them, they can put them into a generic landscape paper bag, and they will be picked up for free, no sticker necessary, throughout the entire month of December. Today is the beginning of the last week of brush collection. This is the citywide brush collection day. If they came through your street today, then I think it's probably too late to put them out. So I think a lot of people have their stuff out, so I think you need to be very careful about putting anything out from this morning onward, but they still are out there. And lastly, I'm glad I did mail Yvonne a request to get a copy of her statements, because I would like to respond to those and to the council as well. And without getting into them, just one thing I want to say, since we are at a meeting right now and televised, the stormwater utility isn't that important to me at the moment. Just so you should know that if you ever did have one, the issue of a utility tax is totally in the control of the city council. It is not an automatic thing. It is a separate tax. The city council has to vote on how big it is and what utilities it applies to. And over the years, it's been changed many times and made applicable to certain utilities and not others. And the other thing is that when we did impose, or when you created the leaf and brush fee, it had nothing to do with the exercise of home rule power. There is a state statute that allows for that to be done, and that's the same statute that Geneva has used before we did, because they're not home rule. We have never used home rule to increase taxes on this community. We have always, in our own minds, pretended we were still under the tax cap, because we thought that was a reasonable way to kind of guide ourselves, and that's exactly what we have done. And we have not used home rule to issue any debt here. We have not issued any debt here since 2006. And I think there's a lot of communities who can't otherwise say that. So I did make the remark that we could do anything. But I don't think of that in terms of anything of raising taxes. To me, the thing of home rule is that when you're not home rule, you can only do precisely what the state says that you can do. If you have a creative way that you can serve the citizens and it's not written there in those statutes in a certain way, you can't do it. The beauty, and absolutely, it's authority to you, and so it could be used in a poor way, but the real beauty of it is that you can think first what's best and think creatively, and then you, of course, have the responsibility of figuring out what the impacts are, but you don't have people in Springfield who have said, well, you can't do this on odd days of the week, because we all know that the state statutes they get to be a little strange at times. So anyway, so that's all I have for tonight. But I will send that, I'll get her questions and address all of them for her and you.
Any questions of the administrator this evening? Thank you.
Yes, Mark, and for home rule, it's much easier to gripe to us where you live with your neighbors than it falling back to Springfield if we did lose home rule.
Well, it's going to be easier for anybody to gripe to you guys no matter what, because you're here. There's more accountability here because you're here.
Right, if you don't like it, then vote out.
Yeah. So, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Committee reports, Alderman Brown?
Committee of the Whole is going to meet tomorrow night, 7:30. On the community development agenda is annexation portions of Deer Path Road, zoning code review, land cash contributions, and discussion of the city logo and the branding and the website redesign. That's all I have for the JCOW. Plan Commission is going to meet Wednesday at 7:30, and Historic Preservation will meet Monday, December 8th at 5:30. That's all I have.
Any questions? Public Utilities, Alderman Clark.
I have nothing to report for public utilities.
Okay. Government Services, Alderman Scarp.
We have nothing on the calendar for tomorrow night and December 9th. We have website redesign and wage and salary ordinances.
City Services, Alderman Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tomorrow night, we have police surplus vehicles on the agenda. That's all I have.
Okay. Do anybody on the council have other business this evening? Alderman Callahan.
May I just ask how the Siemens property is going and the Mastercast?
The Siemens property, as far as I know, they're up there tearing it out. I mean, they've already replanted some of the pavement in the grass along Van Noordtreek, and I believe also on McKee Street there.
Right, I saw that.
Grass mats are down there, and Mastercast, I just drove by that on the way home today. That's pretty much crated up most of the bricks. I would say 85% of the building is down, and I'm sure they're just taking their time going through because they're crating up all the bricks, I think, for reuse.
Did we get any results from any of the remediation?
Not that I've heard.
Okay.
No, we have not received any information on the remediation. We have asked for it, but we have not received any of that. As to Siemens, we have put in a request, again, for some additional timeframes as to the testing and the program that they're planning to do. We have not received a response yet, perhaps due to the holidays. But they are working on getting the parkways done. They have removed all the asphalt. I have not been out there in the last few days to see if the topsoil is down yet or not, but that was the next step in the process.
You've been following up on that.
I'm sorry?
I know you and Jeff have been following up.
Yes.
So thank you.
Petitions for municipal elections, I can start receiving the petitions at 8 a.m. on Monday, December 15th. I will be in the office then. The last time to drop off petitions is 5 p.m. on December 22nd. I know I will be in the office from 4 to 5 p.m. on that day also. I will list a schedule of the times I will be in throughout the week. I try and stagger morning and afternoon hours to make it easy, or you can always mail those in, or just send me an email, and then I will let you know when I can be in the office then to pick them up. But I will post a schedule on the website. But 8 a.m., December 15th, I will be in the office.
And where do we find the documents necessary?
The documents are, real quick, let me make sure I've got them correct. It's under government. If you go under the government heading on our website, then that will have the election information, and all of the documents are in the candidate's guide found through the State of Illinois website. We tried putting the PDFs of those online, and they just were not very good quality, so it's best to just pull them right off the state website.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Vasilian?
Yes. A few weeks ago, Ralph Gabus from Batavia Cares spoke before the council and talked about the program that he runs, sending postal packages, care packages to servicemen wherever they're deployed throughout the world. And he sent me an email a week or so after that stating that contributions to the postal fund are really slow, and asked if we could encourage council members who want to give privately, but also citizens, just to be reminded that you can go to bataviacares.org and make a contribution, or I'm sure Ralph wouldn't mind if you called him. His phone number is 630-363-3646. And I know there's a lot of requests for different organizations for you to give in this holiday season, but if your interest or passion is supporting service people, I know it is for me. I have a daughter who's in the Navy. This is a great way to give and support them. So thank you.
Anybody else have any? Alderman Wolf?
Just wanted a quick report about where the Bulldogs are in the basketball season. They started off 4-0, won the Windy City Petty Tournament this last week for the first time in 5 years that they won it, so that was quite a good start for the team. Encourage everybody to head out to the high school and catch a basketball game. As they were up here tonight talking about the toy drive, I put it out there on the official B-Town Beat fan page on Facebook. Anybody that wants to drop anything off for the Access Toy Drive can do it at either Friday or Saturday night's game. And then hopefully we'll be able to publicize it during Friday night's game and get some more dropped off on Saturday night so we can help out with that.
Very good, thank you. Yeah, I would just make, you've just heard from Alderman Vasilian and Alderman Wolf and Mr. Bailey earlier. We have a lot of really nice causes in this town that are in high deserve of community support. I think there's a little bit of a fear, if I talk to all the folks who are involved with them, that this year things are kind of starting out a little bit on the slow side as far as contributions, donations, acts of kindness and support. And I'm optimistic that will kind of change in the next few days as people get more and more into the holiday spirit. But that is a concern that most of them seem to be having this year, is that they're not getting the real warm fuzzy to this point in time. But the history here has always been that the community does, at the end of the day, rise to the occasion and come out and support people. So I'm optimistic. That being said, last night I think there was a dread that we were going to be hit with a real cold spell, and it was like somebody kind of threw a curtain over Batavia about 5 o'clock at night because the cold temperature didn't drop real bad. And we had, I would describe, as a pretty decent crowd down here for the tree lighting with Santa Claus, and we had the Batavia Community Band, which is an all-volunteer operation, come down and do a real nice mini concert underneath the Peg Bond Center, and then Santa Claus arrived, and we got the tree lit on cue, and it all worked out very well. And again, all of our city departments, for the police, the fire, and the public works, all were there with their hand in it someplace or another. And the one that always scares me is I'm standing up there on that thing throwing that fake switch to turn the tree on, and have that thing throw the switch someday and the tree not come on. But so far, Public Works has always, the electric department has always made sure we had that tree on, and so it is there, and it went off last night without a glitch, so it was good. And we had I thought, a nice turnout, and a lot of people, were there to kind of express their appreciation, and the band, I thought, did an extraordinarily good job. So hopefully that began to revel up the spirit of the community a little bit and what their sentiments about holidays are. So I appreciate all the good efforts, and we'll see how it marches forth. We're getting here now. We're getting into the month of the season, so we'll see where we go. But thank you all for your continued good efforts, and appreciate the dialogue tonight. And as we went through all the various issues, this was one of the healthiest agendas I've seen here in a long time, and we had a lot of moving parts here, and everybody held their decorum, and nobody got really excited. And so at the end of the night, I'm pleased that government worked very strongly, I felt, here tonight. So I thank you all for your cooperative spirits and your willingness to stand up and hear what everybody has to say and listen to what folks are saying and respond accordingly and move forward in a progressive fashion. And some governments I hear of other places get bogged down at meetings and don't ever get any motions made or any votes taken and don't do anything. But we've always had kind of kept our eye on the prize and listened and learned, and then hopefully made the right decisions in most instances. So I thank you all for your good efforts. So that being said, Alderman Brown, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
We adjourn.